Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dan Garodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's review session of April 7th. We are joined today by Vice Chair Knuckles, Commissioners Cerullo, Crowell, Dweck, Gold, Kermani, Marin, Osorio, and Rampersad. Thanks to all of you. Before we get to today's agenda, I'd like to take a moment to go through some recent highlights and announcements from the Department of City Planning. And Commissioner Mann is here on Zoom, too. Welcome, Commissioner. Sorry. First, I want to congratulate the high school seniors of the Laboratory School of Finance and Technology in Mott Haven in the Bronx, who completed City Planning's Youth Engagement Curriculum. Now in its fourth year, this course introduces planning and public engagement concepts to a new group of students each year, helping them become better advocates and leaders in their communities. It's never too early to get involved, and this immersive class gave these young adults the opportunity to dive into real-world planning issues based on their final projects. I'm certain the city is in great hands. Congratulations to all of them. I'd also like to encourage New Yorkers to participate in tonight's virtual information session on the Long Island City Neighborhood Plan. This is co-hosted by the Department of City Planning and Councilmember Julie Wan and facilitated by WXY Studio. This meeting will discuss next steps as the proposal approaches public review. It's a great opportunity to learn how to get involved and to make your voice heard. Finally, the Department of City Planning is sponsoring a series of public meetings led by the Department of Housing, Preservation, and Development to provide resources to tenants or homeowners who live within or near the boundaries of the Atlantic Avenue mixed-use plan. Part of our commitment to continuously supporting this community before, during, and after the review process, these meetings are taking place through April and covering topics like tenants' rights, the city's affordable housing lottery, evading deed theft, and owning a home. You can find more information on this at nyc.gov/HPD events. Let's get to today's agenda. We're going to start with a proposal for a new commercial building at 515 7th Avenue near Bryant Park and Times Square in Midtown South. The development team is exploring two potential scenarios here, an office tower or a mix of office and hotel space. In both cases, the new building would include a 5,400 square foot covered pedestrian space with a cafe, seating, and artwork. I would also note that this project falls within the boundaries of the Midtown South mixed-use plan, which would likely remove the need for some of their requested land use actions if that neighborhood plan ultimately gets approved. We'll next head to Astoria to learn about the 100% income-restricted affordable ICOS Senior Living Development at 3107 31st Street, replacing a municipal parking lot. This proposal calls for two buildings, one with nearly 170 senior apartments under HPD's AIRS program, and the other with a community facility that includes social services through HANC, LBGTQ services, fresh food access through Grow NYC partnership, workforce development, and technology classes through Queens College. The site is located next to the N and W trains at the Broadway station, which is in the process of adding elevators for ADA compliance. Heading east to Elmhurst, we'll hear details on a mixed-use building at 7801 Queens Boulevard with around 315 homes, of which 80 would be income-restricted affordable. The project, which is a half mile from the M and R train at Elmhurst Avenue, would also include ground floor retail and a garden for residents. Staying in Queens, we'll next go over an application to demap portions of Byron Street, 153rd Way, and 145th Road in Springfield Gardens to facilitate the development of a two-story warehouse near JFK Airport. All three of these streets proposed for elimination are part of a parking lot and not actively used for roadways. We'll also hear about follow-up land use actions related to the recently certified Jamaica Neighborhood Plan, which looks to bring over 12,000 new homes, including approximately 4,000 permanently income-restricted affordable homes across a 230-block area in Southeast Queens. These city map changes will help to facilitate the creation of 2 new public plazas next to Jamaica Station, courtesy of the New York City Department of Transportation, with support from EDC. Next up, a proposal to allow a new supermarket that's larger than 10,000 square feet to occupy an existing commercial space at 535 Morgan Avenue in Greenpoint. This shopping plaza already includes a variety of businesses, such as an AutoZone and Dollar Tree store. The supermarket would replace the Staples on the site that sits next to the BQE. We'll also discuss a general project plan for the significant office to residential conversion of 5 Times Square, located at 592 7th Avenue. This large building next to the New Amsterdam Theater is looking to convert into 1,200 new homes, 300 of them permanently income-restricted affordable. Located in the heart of one of New York City's most famous attractions, the building would be steps away from 9 subway lines at Times Square, 42nd Street, the Port Authority Bus Terminal, Bryant Park, Theater District, and many, many more attractions and amenities. From there, we'll head uptown to 132 East 125th Street. This otherwise, as of right, mixed-use development is before us to seek a zoning certification related to a potential transit easement on their zoning lot. The site is on top of the 125th Street subway station that provides access to the 4, 5, and 6 trains. This process is required to determine if such space is needed by the MTA to bring ADA improvements to the station. Ahead of Wednesday's vote, we'll have one more presentation on the Western Rail Yards proposals. The first development scenario would create 3 towers with a gaming facility, hotel, commercial, and residential buildings. The second scenario is for a mix of commercial and residential uses in up to 5 buildings. Both options would create new open space on this block near the 34th Street Hudson Yards 7 train stop. The Commission will also hold follow-ups on the recent public hearings for 145 for Harlem, which would create nearly 970 new homes, over 290 of them permanently income-restricted affordable, and the Coney development, a 1.3 million square foot entertainment complex at Coney Island that would include a gaming facility, hotel, convention center, food hall, retail space, and more. It's a packed agenda before us this afternoon, so Madam Secretary, let's get to it.
Good afternoon and welcome to the City Planning Commission Review Session for Monday, April 7th, 2025. The time is 1:09 p.m. and a quorum is present. The first item on our agenda is a certification of special permits and a zoning text amendment in Manhattan Community District 5. Our presenter is Ezra Mosier.
All right, welcome, Ezra.
There we go. Okay. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Today I'll be describing an application for 515 7th Avenue, in which the applicant is requesting a text amendment and 3 special permits. I'd just like to note that this project has been a long time in the making and that we're very happy to bring it to you at this point. It has involved a very big team effort between DCP and the applicant to get it in front of you this afternoon. So the development site is located within Manhattan Community District 5. So more specifically, 515 7th Avenue, the development site, is located on Block 813 and Lot 64. It's located within a M16 district as well as a special garment center district. The applicant seeks several text amendments to ZR Section 121, which is the current garment center special district zoning. And it would establish a new A3 subarea within the special garment district. So I'll describe these shortly. The proposed text modifies special bulk regulations within the subdistrict and would establish 2 CPC special permits. One special permit would authorize floor area bonuses for a covered pedestrian space, which is a type of POPs that I will describe more later. And then another special permit, which would authorize bulk modifications within that subarea A3. So in addition to those actions, that would result in 3 special permits being requested, 2 of which would be kind of part and parcel of the text amendment I just described. The first is a floor area bonus, obviously, for a covered pedestrian space. Per ZR section 7485, just a note, it has moved to where it lives post ZEO and CHO. It would increase the maximum tower lot coverage under a special permit per the new bulk modification special permit. And then it would also permit a transient hotel use under ZR section 174-153. Okay, so the development site's located in Manhattan's Garment District neighborhood, which is almost entirely comprised of commercial, office, and light manufacturing uses. The zoning districts within the surrounding area are pretty much exclusively M16 manufacturing, which is, again, mapped within the Special Garment Center District, but there's also a portion that's within the C53 and C66 commercial districts in the Special Midtown District. These are north of the project area, right where you can see the dashed line. So the blocks north are MID, and then blocks south and then to the west are Garment Center. So the Garment Center has a dense built form, as we've covered in the MSMX proposal, characterized by muscular loft buildings that accommodate manufacturing, warehousing, retail, and office uses. Buildings in the surrounding area are generally, they exceed the applicable base maximum FAR of 10 within the Garment Center, and then 15 within the Special Midtown District to the north and to the east. As I'll cover later in the presentation, the proposed Midtown South mixed-use rezoning would make changes to the M16 district, which the development site is located in. Amongst other changes, MSMX would increase the maximum permitted FAR, introduce residential use, and would change the height and setback regimen. But again, more on that later. The surrounding area here is transit-rich. It's adjacent to several major transportation facilities, including Port Authority Bus Terminal, Penn Station, and then subway stations at 34th Street, Herald Square, 42nd Street, Bryant Park, and Times Square, 42nd Street. It's also served by numerous bus lines. So to give a little bit of context here, this is an aerial view of the development site, and we are kind of oriented north looking technically due south, but due to the angle of the grid. As you can see, there are major retail and recreational destinations nearby, including Macy's, which is between Broadway and 7th Ave, Madison Square Garden, Bryant Park, the New York Public Library, and also, given the proximity of these attractions, the surrounding area does have a preponderance of hotels. Let's see. So zooming in a little bit more, but maintaining that same viewpoint looking due south, here's a closer look at a development site. It's bordered by 2 buildings that contain retail and office space. The building on block 813, lot 1, so as you can see just to the south of the site, is 17-story tall, and then the other to its east, lot 55, is 23 stories tall. The development site itself is a just under 20,000 square foot lot located at the corner of West 38th Street and 7th Avenue. It's improved with a 4-story, 43-foot tall commercial building that was built in 1951. The existing building occupies the entirety of the lot and contains nearly 103,000 square feet of floor area, which equates to roughly 5.2 FAR. The building contains retail uses on the ground floor, including a deli, a medical supply store, and then primarily it's public parking garage with 280 parking spaces on the ground floor, and then floors 2 through 4. The parking garage has 5 separate travel lanes that are accessible via a 75-foot curb cut on West 38th Street. So the applicant is considering 2 possible configurations for the site. One would contain office use, and then the other would contain both office and transient hotel use. This here is the office-only use. So under the office-only development scenario, the proposed development would consist of approximately a 642-foot tall building with 350,000 square feet of office floor area and about 5,400 square feet of a covered pedestrian space on its ground floor, which we'll discuss more later. The proposed development would have a proposed FAR of 18, and then, as you can see, there's an office and hotel scenario where it's built to the same density, but is a little bit shorter, coming in at 36 stories and 512 feet tall. The building under the office and hotel scenario would have 143,000 square feet of office floor area, and then about 207,000 square feet of hotel floor area. Just like the first scenario, it would be built to 18 FAR, and the hotel room would have 255 rooms and would occupy floors 11 through 35. So the offices would occupy floors 3 through 11, and then the hotel would be above that on 13 through 35. Okay, so we'll hone in on the office-only scenario for now. Here are isometric drawings of the office-only scenario. As you can see, the proposed development would reach the top of the requested roughly 642-foot envelope. Now we're going to go to the office and hotel scenario. You can kind of see how it drops a little bit in height. The isometric lines that go up, to the top of the screen, that's the envelope from the previous version. So again, these are the equivalent drawings for an office and hotel. Although it is not as tall as the office-only configuration, the applicant is still requesting that same envelope for both. A little bit of lag here, sorry. There we go. Okay, so here are side-by-side east-west cross-sections for both scenarios, with the office-only scenario here on the left, and then the office and hotel scenario on the right. Despite the office-only scenario technically only having 2 more stories than the office and hotel scenario, there's a considerable difference in height. This cross-section helps illustrate why this is the case. Most of the hotel floors, which it's more or less visible here in kind of the red hatching, they just have lower floor-to-floor heights than do the office floors due to the different kind of mechanical requirements for each. So that compresses the overall building. While we have these drawings on the screen, I want to draw attention to the highlighted areas in both scenarios here in yellow. Between 205 and then 295 feet in height, these towers would not comply with the existing tower coverage regulations, and I'll be describing this further on, but the applicant is seeking bulk relief for just this portion here between 205 and 295 feet. The applicant believes that increasing that maximum tower coverage up to 295 feet would be advantageous because it would align with the height of adjoining street walls, the adjoining street walls parapet, which would help maintain visual continuity along West 38th Street. It would enable larger floor plates, and thus it would help to lower the overall building height. Okay, so here's an illustrative rendering of the office-only scenario. Again, this is the one that goes up to 642 feet tall. It's 38 stories, 18 FAR. Here is a rendering of the office and hotel scenario. 36 stories, roughly 512 feet tall, and also 18 FAR. Okay, so as I previously mentioned, both of these scenarios would include a ground floor covered pedestrian space, which I may be referring to interchangeably as a CPS. As a quick refresher, covered pedestrian spaces have existed since 1970 as a POPs typology, and they are enclosed spaces for public use. The CPC may permit floor area bonuses in exchange for the provision of these CPSs. You may recall a similar CPS application, although it wasn't ground up, it was a modification to 60 Wall Street from last year. Whereas the owner of a typical, actually that's 2023. Whereas the owner of a typical POPs may choose to apply for a chairperson certification to facilitate, say, an open-air cafe or some kind of activation in the POP space, the CPS typology here actually requires amenities like retail, cafes to activate them. So the CPS for the proposed development here would have 30-foot tall ceilings and would be accessible from the 2 entryways highlighted here on 7th Avenue and then West 38th Street. As I noted before, it would occupy about 5,400 square feet. It would include 4 trees, a 110 square foot cafe, which you can see on the far right of the screen. It would have 26 tables, 62 movable chairs, and then 125 linear feet of fixed seating around the planters, as well as trash receptacles. There would also be a garment-themed artwork wall facing 7th Avenue, which the applicant describes as a fashion wall. You can kind of see the call-out box for it towards the bottom center of the screen here. It would feature a rotating exhibit of works by local artists and designers. Okay, So here's an illustrative view rendering view of the covered pedestrian space. We're currently oriented if you entered it from 7th Avenue. So you're looking towards the rear of the space. You see it may be a little bit hard to see the legend in the top left, but you're basically looking along the length of the CPS. So that's the cafe in the background. You can see the trees with fixed seating around the planters on the left. You can see a little bit of what's called the fashion wall on the right. And then let's see, switching perspectives, this is kind of the opposite view looking out towards 7th Avenue, roughly if the cafe is at your back. So let's see. This also is a view looking from 38th Street, but like once you're inside, it's kind of looking roughly from where some of the trees are. What's important to highlight here is that the applicant is actually providing connection between the covered pedestrian space and their building lobby. Not just a connection, but also that visual continuity, which from a DCP standpoint, we believe helps improve the legibility of the space, and also just generally that kind of visibility helps enliven the space. Let me see. Okay, so again, we're going back out to this exterior view. This is again from 7th Avenue, looking eastward at the 7th Avenue facade of the building. We're just highlighting here in yellow, this is the covered pedestrian space portion of the building. And then what you see to the right is the actual office lobby or office and hotel lobby entrance. So that's just to show the distinction, because otherwise, as you can see, they're kind of visually quite cohesive. Okay, so let's see. We're going to get into the requested actions now. The applicant seeking zoning text amendments to Article 12, Chapter 1, Section 121, which governs a special garment center district. The main thrust of it would be to establish a new A3 sub-area, which is highlighted in red on the right-hand screen. Subdistrict A3 would increase the basic maximum FAR from 10, which is allowed today, in Subdistrict A1, where the site is currently located, up to 15 in the new A3 subdistrict. It would also establish CPC special permits authorizing a floor area bonus for a covered pedestrian space. And then it would also establish a CPC special permit authorizing modifications to bulk regulations. So as we just went over from the visuals, the applicant is requesting a special permit to enable a 3 FAR bonus for a covered pedestrian space that would increase their density from the proposed as of right of 15 up to 18. As a condition for permitting this bonus floor area, the City Planning Commission must determine that the CPS would meet the following findings. 1, that it would provide comfort and convenience to the general public. 2, it must be located at or near primary pedestrian circulation areas and have prominent entrances. 3, its public character must be obvious from the outside of the building. Sorry, 1 second. 4, that it includes appropriate commercial uses, such as small stores or cafes. 5, that the FAR bonuses associated with the CPS do allow for satisfactory light and air to the surrounding streets and properties. And then the last point actually is kind of inapplicable to here, but for covered pedestrian spaces, generally there is kind of an increase in the bonus ratio if you connect to the subway, for example, and provide like amenities within the space. But that's not the case here. So the applicant's also requesting a special permit under their proposed Section 12171. Again, the text amendment's creating this, and it would provide bulk relief in this proposed subdistrict A3. The action would be needed to increase the proposed development's maximum tower lot coverage, which, if you can remember several slides back when we showed the 2 side-by-side scenarios with a yellow highlight portion in the middle, that's what it would be allowing. So the special permit would increase this tower lot coverage up to 61% and up to a height of 295 feet, which is the height of the street wall parapet of the adjoining building. For the proposed development, stories that are above 295 feet would actually comply with the applicable tower requirements of 41% coverage. And then lastly, the applicant is requesting a special permit under 74-153 to establish a transient hotel use. The applicant believes the proposed hotel meets the findings, specifically that it is compatible with adjacent uses, that it has a street wall design that is consistent with the streetscape's existing character, that it would not unduly cause vehicular and pedestrian congestion or impediments, and would not impair the surrounding area's essential character or future development. So, again, in summary, I hope it's not too repetitive, pardon me if it is. The applicant requests a text amendment to Article 12, Chapter 1, to establish a new subdistrict A3 within the Special Garment Center District, which would increase the as-of-right maximum FAR from 10 to 15, establish the CPC special permit, establish the applicability of the CPC special permit for a covered pedestrian space, and then would establish a new CPC special permit altogether that would authorize bulk modifications within subdistrict A3. So then they are applying for a special permit for covered pedestrian space, a special permit for increased maximum tower lot coverage, and then a special permit for transient hotel use. So all of that said, and as Dan alluded to earlier, the list of requested zoning actions would need to be amended if the Midtown South Mixed-Use Plan, MSMX, were to be adopted as it's currently proposed. MSMX would make the proposed developments bulk as of right, meaning that the requested text amendments related to bulk would not be necessary. Actually, all the proposed text amendments would be unnecessary. So only the two checkbox special permits would be required in the event of MSMX's approval to facilitate the proposed development in both the office or the office and hotel scenario. The first is that they would still require a covered pedestrian space bonus, and as part of MSMX, we are writing that into the provisions of it, so it's an eligible, sites within MSMX are eligible to use this bonus. So they would still need to go through the special permit process for it. And then second is for a transient hotel, because transient hotels are not an as-of-right use. I would note that under MSMX, and this is kind of what the two check boxes at the bottom of the screen are, it might be a little bit confusing, but it just has to make its hotel special permit under a different section because it's in a paired mixed district, which means that it just has to do it to the generic citywide hotel special permit, whereas currently it's applying to it only in M districts. So the department does believe that these changes in the event of MSMX's approval are within scope and could be implemented during the ULURP process. Okay, so almost there. But the application requires a racial equity report, which helps put the proposal into context with neighborhood-level socioeconomic data. In the Chelsea, Clinton, and Midtown Business District, 54% of the population identified as white non-Hispanic, 18% identified as Asian non-Hispanic, 16% identified as Hispanic Latino, and 7% identified as Black non-Hispanic. On the Displacement Risk Index, Chelsea, Clinton, and the Midtown Business District fall in the lowest possible displacement category. Okay, so in conclusion, the applicant's proposing a tower with approximately 350,000 square feet of floor area, which equates to 18 FAR, and a 5,402 square foot covered pedestrian space. They're requesting approval of two different configurations. One, the office-only configuration would contain 38 stories and stand at roughly 642 feet tall. And then there would be an office and hotel scenario that would contain 36 stories and stand at roughly 512 feet tall. In the office hotel scenario, it would include 143,000 square feet of office and then 207,000 square feet of hotel floor area with 255 rooms. So to facilitate the proposal, the applicant is requesting text amendments to the Special Garment Center District, is requesting a text amendment to the Special Garment Center District and then special permits pursuant to that section for a covered pedestrian space, increase in tower lot coverage, and then a transient hotel use. That concludes the presentation. Hope that was clear. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ezra. It was very clear. And so my first questions here are really mostly just to summarize and make sure that we've got it, but not because I think I missed it. But the text amendments that they're seeking, all three of them would be obviated by MSMX, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And we would be bumping up the as-of-right FAR under MSMX to 15,
That's correct.
which is the reason why they would not need that to be a special rule in a special sub-area of their existing district. We are dealing with the tower lot coverage issue in MSMX, and the special permit for hotel exists either way, but through a slightly different section in one versus the other.
Yep.
Correct? Okay. Let's talk about the covered pedestrian space. So that is a new tool that would exist in MSMX and is being proposed to be used here under a text amendment with special permit, but would be used through a special permit if MSMX is approved. It gives a bonus for great covered public areas, covered pedestrian spaces. So I think that the first question that I have here, and really the big question for me is, one of the findings was the public character is obvious from the outside of the building. Now, this looks great, but how will and I realize we're starting the process here, this is a question for the applicant, they're the ones who are gonna have to answer this, but I will say it out loud here, and Ezra, you can decide to what level you feel like you should be answering this question, I'll leave it to you. But how would one possibly discern that this is for the public as opposed to a bigger office lobby?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's almost as if we have too much of a good thing here with how seamlessly it blends with the office lobby. But the applicant can speak to it to make their case, but there is required pop signage to clearly indicate that it's open to the public. You know, there may be room for additional signage. That's something that we're, discussing with the applicant to make it loud and clear. We're hoping that the use of the kind of design language of the covered pedestrian space reads like other more state-of-the-art pops, especially like some of our other indoor pops, mostly covered pedestrian spaces. But for example, we recently had a fantastic redesign of 550 Madison Avenue by Snowhetta. So we're hoping that it's the design language and the signage that helps communicate it. But I think the point is important that... Are
we limited to, in a new configuration, a new special permit here, are we limited by existing pop signage rules, or can we have more flexibility here to add more, require more, et cetera?
There is a commission kind of safeguards and prescriptions clause in it, so I believe the commission could, make additional requests beyond our pop signs. They're very standardized. We work very hard to do that. So that's an ongoing discussion, and one that can be had with the applicant. We'll also just do our homework and confirm that that's perfectly within scope to ask for anything additional signage-wise.
Okay, and the entrance to this covered pedestrian space would be both on 7th Avenue and on 38th Street, correct?
That is correct, yep.
And there also, the entrance to the lobby of the building is just to the south of the fashion wall, is that correct?
Yeah, it looks like it splits the fashion wall kind of in half, actually. Here,
I'll
show you in the...
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so the lobby includes half of the fashion wall, basically. Okay, and you can access the lobby from the covered pedestrian space?
That's correct, and that is something that generally DCP thinks of as best practice. It's not all covered pedestrian spaces in the past have provided that connectivity, so in order to kind of not have it be a sequestered space, we're generally, in favor of those connections.
What a great opportunity for this corner.
Mm-hmm.
Most important, the public needs to know that they can go in. Okay, let me start with Vice Chair Knuckles, go to Commissioner Osorio, Commissioner Kamani.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know what the contingency is between the two options, the purely commercial versus hotel and commercial? What?
Yeah, they've requested it for flexibility based on market conditions. I will say that this project did start out around like 2020, 2021. So they've had an idea of keeping their options like for both, but I think it's like a TBD in terms of the market situation. But in approval of both scenarios, they would then have the option to implement one or the other.
Okay. Under the office hotel scenario, I see offices would occupy 3 through 11, and then a hotel would occupy 13 through 35. Is there a buffer floor or an acknowledged 12th floor? What goes on there?
Mechanical. Space.
Mechanical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although interesting that they have a 13th floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Commissioner Osorio, then Commissioner Kermani.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. Really interesting, super clear. I wanted to build on the Chair's question about the public character of the CPS. And so I definitely agree it's a really interesting tool. And maybe the question is really about MSMX. But let's just throw it out there and begin to brainstorm, given the fact that it's being used here. So I wanted to ask two things. One is, can you explain a little bit how much, like what is actually required in terms of public access? Are we talking about 24/7? No. What does that really mean? I mean, how often can people use it? I'm specifically, well, let me stop there and see what you think about that.
It's a good question because actually off the top of my head, I don't know what hours they're proposing, but that is in their materials and they can answer to that. There are like minimum requirements of how late something has to be open to the public, but it also can dovetail and usually should and does dovetail with like how late is the office lobby open?
Of course, yeah. It makes sense. You know, the reason why I asked that is because this sounds like an opportunity to activate these types of public spaces during emergencies. Like I'm, for example, thinking about a heat wave. Mm-hmm. Can this serve a purpose during that time? And if that's the case, then, you know, how does a schedule, sort of like, how would it work? It's a question. I don't know. You know, it's just an interesting opportunity that
Eric helped work on, you know, the executive orders during COVID for when we were trying to use POPs for, distribution spaces and the like. So I assume that with a certain executive order, it's possible.
Interesting. Thank you. Well, you know, if we can continue that conversation, maybe in the context of MSMX more precisely, that would be great. The other question that I ask, I mean, it's kind of like building on the same idea, but to Commissioner Goodrich's op-ed in the New York Times, you know, I know that, you know, we're requiring in a cafe, but public bathrooms be required as well? Again, in the spirit of elevating the public benefit of the CPS.
That's a good question. I think we can get back to you on that one as to whether that's also within the purview of like commission safeguards. I don't want to speak too definitively off the top of my head, but my assumption is that that provision is there, you know, to allow for additions.
Oh, okay.
Of items. But
okay,
it really, you know, has to be, I believe, that, you know, to ensure that it's consistent with all the findings. But yeah, we'll find out on that.
Fair enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Kermani.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. Building off of these questions, if the hotel option is the one that becomes real, is there a separate entrance for the hotel, or is it all through the main entrance? And then, so would that mean that it actually is 24 hours?
It definitely wouldn't be through the POPs. We didn't include ground floor configurations. You can kind of see here, this is not the most helpful because it's a section view, so it's not exactly showing the entrance, but the hotel lobby is separate from the CPS. You can see that pretty clearly here.
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't say clearly because the font is tiny. But on that ground floor, on the side that's hotel and office scenario, the space to the right there's a very long space to the left of the red highlighted area. That's the covered pedestrian space. Mm-hmm. And the hotel lobby is to its rear, which I guess would be to the east. So, it's not through the covered pedestrian space. And it would have to have its own separate lobby entrance.
The office lobby is on
37.
Wait. Where is the right?
In this,
On the right side, there doesn't appear to be an office lobby.
yeah, it's probably because it's a cross-section at a certain point. I can, when we come back for this for pre-hearing, we can have ground floor plans to make that more clear. Apologize for that.
And then my second question is, again, if it's a hotel option, does the do they anticipate perhaps more retail? I mean, I know there's only that cafe, but just often in hotels there are retail spaces, and I just didn't see if there was a thought process about that. Like more retail, I assume a hotel would have its own restaurants, but often there are retail spaces, and I just didn't see that in the proposal.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be pretty hard to fit that on the ground floor of, the proposal. We can have the applicant get back to you on that, whether there's any possibility. They know that, the programmatic tightness best, but it is a relatively constrained site, and the covered pedestrian space taking up 5,400 square feet of it, especially, being relatively long along 38th Street. I'm not sure.
And it may be that those retail spaces would be on the hotel floors and not on the ground floors, but just didn't see any retail discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Gold.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of points of follow-up there. So first is on the public space, if we think about it as, I guess, 5,400 square feet, to Commissioner Kamani's question, so assume hotel lobby or office lobby, are we saying that's entirely separate? It's cordoned off, so there's a separate entrance and a separate, exit or whatnot? Like it's almost not attached to the rest of the functionality of the building? Is that
That's correct. It's, optional to pass through the CPS, but there's a dedicated hotel entrance and a dedicated office lobby entrance, and they are separate. The office lobby does have that permeable connection between it, but you can enter just straight out onto 7th Avenue. Onto 7th Avenue.
Got it. So, and I guess as it's envisioned, there's a lot of glass there. It's a little bit hard to tell, but is it envisioned as something that would feel like part of the building, or is it envisioned, we see the glass, but, is it just really completely sectioned off, if you will, or glass behind it? It looks like maybe there's some glass that attaches and makes it feel bigger than the 5,400 square feet, or is it too early to even know?
Well, I believe it's 30 feet in height, so I think that, that kind of clear story effect does help, make it feel bigger than it's 5,400 feet. But, yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, it's a curtain wall. It uses design language. It's kind of similar to the rest of the building's facade to help show that it's part of the building. Again, we're hoping that kind of the visual cueing of public amenities helps kind of, alert the public that, from across the street, say, because you might not see a pop sign from the far side of 7th Avenue, that there's, a publicness to it.
Got it. Is there a formula of how much pop space they need to put in to get the bonus, or there must be, right?
Yeah, there is.
Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's different from, for example, what the commission just saw with 350 Park Avenue, where there's no ratio. This is because it is kind of a vestige of the 70s, but it has produced some very good spaces. So, we still have it as a use or a type of POPs typology that can be developed ground up. It's about 11 to 1. So 11 square feet of bonus floor area for every 1 square foot of covered pedestrian space provided. You can increase that bonus ratio if you have like a subway connection within it, for example. But in this case, it's just a plain old 11 to 1.
Got it. Okay, and then one more. I just want to talk a little bit about the effect of approving both scenarios at this point. I mean, so what's the net of that? At some point, a decision gets made, and it looks like the footprint is different for one versus the other. So if they decide to go office, does the hotel approval sort of go by the wayside because of that, or is that something that's held on to and later on, if the office isn't working out, all of a sudden this becomes a hotel because they have a double approval?
That's a fascinating question. I guess it may depend about how far along in the DOB and foundation process they get. That's a really good question. We can get back to you on that one. Whether they start building with office, do they surrender the hotel special permit, or in granting it, does it also kind of have a typical special permit window during which they can change plans?
I mean, I guess it's it might be slightly easier in this case because we're looking at different footprints, but maybe it's not. Maybe, I'm sort of curious of, at some point they have to make a decision, presumably, and where that leaves us.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've basically been thinking about it. They'll make a decision, they'll go with it, but what happens to the hotel special permit once they vest with an office? All right.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me go to Commissioner Marin.
Thank you, Chair. Ezra, so building at 642, lobby at 30 feet, you're looking at 612. Divide that by 38, you're looking at 16-foot floor-to-floor height on average. What is the impetus for 16-foot floor heights on the office-only scenario?
I'll have the applicant speak to it. I can only make, educated guesses based on my,
I'm sure there's a plan for some mechanical, but 16 seems excessive. So if we can get some sort of rationale for that, that would be helpful. And likewise, on the office and hotel scenario, if you can also have the applicant sort of outline what the floor-to-floor heights are, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. The other questions that I had have been asked. Well, one was, of course, about the permits and how they're handled. So that's something that we really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. I mean, for better and worse, we've had relatively few hotel special permits, so it's a really good question. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dweck, do you want to?
Yeah, just to comment to Commissioner Marin, when you did the math, you deducted the first 30 for the...
642 minus 3612. 612 divided by 38 is 16.1.
Got it.
Equal floor height.
All right.
Showing off.
That's what happens when you learn too much math in architectural school.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me go to Commissioner Goodrich, and then I'll go to Commissioner Rampersad.
I wanted to build off of Commissioner Osorio's question. So just to confirm, we don't know that there will be any restrooms?
There will be a cafe in it. That they are proposing that, and that will be in it. Like, grab it and go.
You will probably have to.
Yeah. It is different from like open air cafe certification, where that's kind of like de facto, private space temporarily. This is all for public use, so it is a cafe.
Having to purchase from a cafe to use a restroom kind of not very different from the status quo.
I mean, I don't believe there's a restroom currently proposed with it, but I guess it would depend on whether the restroom is associated with a cafe or whether it's part of the public space, if there were one.
So is there anything we can do at this point for there to be a restroom as part of the public space? Because I do find it a bit, sometimes people associate hotels, they will run into a hotel to try to use a lobby restroom. So I do find out of all of the pops for this to be a privately owned space associated with the hotel and not have a restroom to be a bit strange. So is there anything that we can do at this point?
Since it was kind of a novel idea brought up here, we can definitely get back to the commission on that as to whether that could be part of something the commission can request as like a safeguard or condition for approval. So we'll get back to you by pre-hearing.
Okay. My second question is something that other commissioners have touched on. Historically, privately owned spaces have been criticized because you can't tell that they are public spaces. And one of the criticisms has been that that's intentionally being done to keep some people out. And so as part, what New York City has done is they put up these signs saying this is a publicly owned space. But I think that for this particular type of space, it is, as other people have touched on, it is going to be really difficult to be able to tell. Sometimes just looking at a space, people might see the pop sign and still feel like it's not truly a public space. So I'm wondering what else, if there's any proactive steps being taken to signal to the public that this will be a public space that's open as opposed to just part of the hotel lobby.
Yeah, we're looking into whether there can be like additional signage added that, more explicitly calls out to the public, that it's a public space. There are examples of like older covered spaces that have like a larger lettering indicating like a public use. That tends to be with like legacy spaces that, pre-existed. So we're going to work to determine whether that's something that could be added in by the commission for additional signage above and beyond our kind of standard POPs ones.
I know POPs are listed on the New York City government website, but are they promoted, like, to the city as, here's a POPs, here's a public space that people can use, or?
That's an interesting question. I'd have to defer to some of our colleagues who are, who run the POPs program here, but I can definitely get back to you with more info on that at pre-hearing about how we do promote. Yeah, it is listed, but it's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Rampershad, then Commissioner Mann, and then Commissioner Cerullo.
Thank you for the presentation. A lot of the questions I had were already asked. Just a quick question with regards to the hotel scenario. Have they determined how many hotel rooms?
Yes, it's 255 rooms.
255 rooms, okay.
And 207,000 square feet.
In that scenario, they have separate elevator banks for the hotel and one for the office?
I would assume so. These generally have to have separate entrances, so I don't know if they could, share elevator banks then. Okay. I'm not 100% versed in all of the, the new regulations of the hotel special permit, which was created in like late 2021. But with the prior examples that we've seen, they are separate elevator banks.
That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann on Zoom.
Thanks, Ezra, for the presentation. I just had a quick question. So under the MSMX plan, they could also do residential here as of right. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That is correct. Yeah, the applicant doesn't contemplate it, but that would be an as of right allowance.
Okay. And I just was curious because, one of the questions I'd raised during the MSMX certification was just about this balance of residential versus commercial in the future of Midtown, and if we're striking that balance correctly. So I was just curious if you had any additional kind of up-to-the-minute market intelligence from the development team about the status kind of in their thinking of office in the neighborhood and what they see, because obviously they see it as a promising opportunity. What's giving them that indication that the office market here is durable enough to support a ground-up new office building?
No, it's a good question. I mean, less market intel, more kind of, stating the typological obvious. It is hard to find sites that lend themselves well to Class A office space footprints, which is typically what's going to happen in a ground-up development. I would say that the fact that the applicant is, fully all in on either an office or office and hotel use is indication of, they're believing that this has, the potential for a new ground-up office development. I don't know, Eric, do you think there's anything to add from, MSMX land? Yeah. I mean, we believe that it's an appropriate use and that, again, this area is truly very mixed use. So we take it as a good sign that, again, one of the most probably otherwise like regular development sites in all the MSMX area is being taken up for commercial development.
Okay, got it. And there's just last question on the CPS, looking at the site plan and looking at the entrance on 38th Street. It's a minor point, but in terms of just making it as public as possible, I was wondering whether there had been discussion about having an entrance closer to the corner of 7th and 38th, or having a second entrance at the 38th Street frontage, which is the longer frontage.
Yeah, there is a 38th Street frontage. I don't know about whether it would be within scope to move it closer to the avenue corner and rearrange the amenities. My assumption is that based on like the planter layouts, it would, there would have to be some rearranging of the space to accommodate it. It's just designed with the 38th Street entrance being a little bit further down 38th Street, but we can get back to you at pre-hearing on that.
Yeah, I can ask the applicant about that. I thought that maybe the corner is obviously the most visible part of this building, so having entrances as close to the corner as possible might just help people wander into the building more easily. So, okay, I'll ask the applicant on that. Thanks, Ezra.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Cerullo?
Just a couple of sort of thoughts in the discussion. I know that there are different neighborhood entities that do promote POPs. I think they can be found, say, on our website if you're looking for public spaces. So I think there are different, I don't know that there's consistency in the sort of marketing of them, aside from the city's website, for sure. They definitely exist on the city's website. But I think just more, not so much as you can go and enjoy them, but that they exist legally. So it's a whole different kind of thing. I just want to, this is really just a question to be reminded, and I think I know the answer to this, whether this POPs was a sort of covered or uncovered POPs. As part of the design of a POPs, we don't typically, or I don't believe any other agency requires restrooms to be constructed as part of that design. Is that true?
That's correct. There's no requirement.
There's no requirement. Okay, only because when you think of the design, plumbing and all kinds of other issues are a bigger issue there. And I think we need to be careful about a precedent that we set. We've approved these kinds of things before. Obviously, if they were part of what's required, that's a different issue. But I just wanted to be reminded of whether or not we've done that before, where we've required something, even if we have I'm not even sure we have the authority to require it, but I just think we need to be careful about that.
Most recently that I can recall, with One Penn Plaza in 2019, there were similar discussions around a public restroom, and there wasn't really capacity to include it up at the POPs level, so instead it was the developer helped put it at their basement level in connection with the Penn Concourse. That was the last time I can remember one being included as part of a proposal.
Got it. Okay, so maybe there's other options there aside. Okay, that was it. Just wanted some thoughts.
And it was the developer that volunteered it too.
And the developer volunteered it. Oh, so it was okay.
It was related to a borough president ask, I believe, but yeah, that was the context for it.
Understood. Yeah. Thank you, Ezra.
I just wanted to quickly
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Goodrich.
say, there's been community boards who have worked with DCP before on pushing to have POPs pushing to have public restrooms in POPs. I forgot.
We have Community Board 5 regularly requests that even in private cafes, that the seating be available to the public. Is that what you're referring to?
I don't remember if it was Community Board 5, but I think it was a few of them. But they're mostly in Manhattan.
Yeah,
so it's not. But one of the reasons has been because it's a public space that's privately owned, so there has to be some kind of give back to the community, and we have a restroom shortage. So,
with respect to the question, CB5 has been pretty regular in requesting both restrooms and that in the case of open air cafes, which are in outdoor public plazas, that those seats also be open to the public, even if you're not, the ones that are related to the cafe, even if you're not purchasing from it. So we've heard those concerns from CB5 quite regularly.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Ezra. This item is now certified, and we appreciate the time. And let's move on to the next item.
Thank you.
The second item on our agenda is a certification of a UDAP designation, project approval, and disposition of city-owned property, zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 1. Our presenter is Derek Jasmine.
Hi, Derek.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, great. This is ICO's Senior Living. This is an application by another city agency, HPD, along with Hannick Inc. and Mega Development LLC for a zoning map amendment from an existing R5C12 and R5 zoning district to C45 and C42A zoning district, a related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish mandatory inclusionary housing area with Option 1, and a UDAP designation for project approval and disposition of city-owned land. These actions would facilitate the development of an approximately 106,800 square foot, 13-story mixed-use building containing 167 affordable independent residences for seniors, or AIRS units, 6,200 square feet of community facility space, and 6,500 square feet of ground floor retail located at 3107 31st Street in Astoria, Queens, Community District 1. Here's an aerial view facing north on this portion of Astoria. The project area is located along 31st Street, which is a wide street, and just south of Broadway, another wide street. The project area was mapped with an R5 zoning district and C12 overlay in 1961 and is located just south of the Broadway's rezoning, which was adopted in 2001, as well as the Astoria rezoning of 2010. The surrounding area is characterized by residential, commercial, and mixed-use buildings, and this proposal is located within the inner transit zone. The nearest subway station is the Broadway station along N&W lines, located at the corner of Broadway and 31st Street, immediately adjacent to the project area. As seen here, the immediate surrounding area is characterized by a mix of land uses, including residential, commercial, and community facility uses, with commercial uses concentrated along 31st Street as well as Broadway. The project area consists of the applicant-owned development site on Block 611, Lot 25, as well as non-applicant-owned lots on Block 611, Lots 21, and portions of Lots 43 through 52, 144, 146, and 152, as well as Block 587, Lot 43, with portions of Lots 18, 29, 34, and 54. The development site is currently improved with a municipal parking lot, and the non-applicant-owned lots are improved with 2 to 3-story, 2 and 3-family residential buildings, as well as 1 single-story commercial building. Here's a view of the development site facing southeast from 31st Street. Here's another view of the project area from 31st Street, this time facing northeast with the development site on the right. Here's another view of the project area, this time facing west from 31st Street with the development site located behind these pictures. And here's another view of the project area, this time along 32nd Street, the left image facing west toward the development site, and the right image facing north with the development site on the left. The primary applicant is HPD, and in 2019, HPD released a request for proposals for development of the site, and in 2021, selected Hannock and Mega Development as partners of the project. Hannock was founded in 1972, is based in Astoria, and has served Queens community for over 50 years, provides social services for a number of senior residences, including Corona Senior Residences, which was recently completed in 2016, and Archbishop Yakovo Senior Residences, which are located just 1/2 mile from the project area. The proposed rezoning would facilitate the development of a new 13-story residential building containing 167 AIRS units and approximately 106,800 square feet of floor area with an FAR of 5.01. Approximately 6,500 square feet of commercial retail would be located on the ground floor and 200 square feet of community facility space. The proposed development will have a 7-story, 74-foot high street wall along 31st Street with a 10-foot setback at the 7th floor. Here's another view of the development site, this time facing from 32nd Street, highlighting the community facility. The proposed ICOS Community Center would feature workforce development for older adults, technology classes through Queens College, LGBTQ services for seniors, fresh food access through a partnership with Grow NYC, and social services for seniors provided through Hannock. The residential entrance and 3 commercial entrances to the building would be situated along 31st Street, as well as a service entrance, and the entrance to the community facility would be located on the other side of the block at 32nd Street. The proposed development would also include open space available to residences located inside the interior portion of this site. So to facilitate the proposed development, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from existing R5C12 zoning district to a C45 and C42A zoning district. Zoning text amendment to modify Appendix F and establish MIH Option 1, and UDAP designation for disposition of city-owned land. The proposed rezoning would increase the maximum allowable residential FAR from 1.5 to 5.01. The existing R5C12 district has a maximum residential FAR of 1.5 and maximum commercial FAR of 1 with a max building height of 55 feet. C4 districts are mapped in regional centers located outside of the central business district, and C4-5 districts have an R7-2 equivalent and allow a max base height of 85 feet. Max building height as of right under R7-2 is 115 feet, which increases to 155 feet when fronting transportation-related infrastructure, such as the elevated rail line along 31st Street. C4-5 has a max commercial of 3.4, and the residential equivalent allows a max FAR of up to 5.01, and C4-5 has no parking requirements. C4-2A districts have an R6A equivalent with a max base height of 65 feet and max building height of 95 feet. C4-2A has a max commercial FAR of 3, and residential equivalent allows a max FAR of up to 3.9. C4-2A requires 1 parking space for every 400 square feet of commercial space, and within the inner transit zone does not have any parking requirements for residential use. MIH Option 1 requires that 25% of dwelling units be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI. This application is subject to the Racial Equity Report, since it seeks approval for an increase in permitted floor area, residential floor area of at least 50,000 square feet. Between 2017 and 2021, the median household income in Community District 1 was approximately $79,300 annually, which is greater than the estimates for Queens and New York City at about $75,000 and $70,600 respectively. In line with the Senior Affordable Rental Apartments SARA loan program through HPD, 30% of dwelling units must be reserved for formerly homeless, with the other 70% reserved for AMI bands at 60% or lower, and in the case of this project, a range between 0 and 50%. Out of the approximately 193,000 total residents of Queens Community District 1, approximately 15% identified as Asian non-Hispanic, 7% identified as Black non-Hispanic, 25% identified as Hispanic or Latino of any race, and 47% identified as white non-Hispanic. Between 2010 and 2020, the population in Community District 1 increased roughly 7%, closer to the 8% growth seen at the Queens and New York City level. All population groups saw increases in population during this period, except for Hispanic Latino, which saw no significant change. So in summary, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from an existing R5C12 and R5 zoning districts to C45 and C42A zoning districts, a related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish mandatory inclusionary housing area with Option 1, and a UDAP designation for project approval and disposition of city-owned land to facilitate the development of an approximately 106,800 square foot, 13-story mixed-use building containing 167 AIRS units, 6,200 square feet of community facility space, and 6,500 square feet of ground floor retail. And that concludes my presentation. I'm ready for questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Commissioner Marian.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you talk to us about the unit price? I mean, we know there's studios and ones, but what is the breakdown between studios and ones here in this building?
That is a great question. I don't have that off the top of my head, but the applicant can certainly answer that question.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. This item is certified. Thank you. Let's move on to the next.
Thank you.
The third item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Queens Community District 4. Our presenter again is Derek Jasmine.
Hello again. Hello. This time we are shifting over to 7801 Queens Boulevard rezoning. This is an application by 7801 Queens Holdings LLC for a zoning map amendment from an existing M11 zoning district to an R7X C24 zoning district and a related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area with options 1 and 2. These actions would facilitate the development of an approximately 263,300 square foot, 13-story mixed-use building containing 314 total dwelling units, 79 of which would be income restricted, 9,800 square feet of ground floor retail, and 143 accessory parking spaces located at 7801 Queens Boulevard in Elmhurst, Queens, Community District 4. Here is an aerial view facing north of this portion of Elmhurst. The project area is located along Queens Boulevard, a wide street, and between Albion Avenue and Cornish Avenue, both narrow streets. The project area was mapped with an M11 zoning district in 1961 and is located within the boundaries of the Elmhurst-Corona rezoning, which was adopted in 1989, which retained the M11 zoning designation. The surrounding area is characterized by residential, commercial, and mixed-use buildings, and this proposal is located within the inner transit zone. The nearest subway stations are the Elmhurst Station and Grand Avenue Newtown stations, both of which are situated along the M&R lines along Broadway. As seen here, the immediate surrounding area is characterized by a mix of land uses, including residential, commercial, and community facility uses, with commercial uses concentrated along Queens Boulevard. The project area consists of the applicant-owned development site on Block 1537, lots 4, 19, and 22, as well as non-applicant-owned lots on Block 1537, Lot 1, and Block 1538, lots 1, 4, 7, 10, and part of 16. The development site is currently improved with a TD Bank drive-through and accessory parking lot. The non-applicant-owned lots are mostly improved with 2- and 3-story mixed-use buildings with ground floor retail and residential uses on the upper floors. So this here is a view of Queens Boulevard facing east with the development site on the left. Here's a view of the project area from Barnesville Avenue facing southwest towards Queens Boulevard. The development site is located behind the building on the right. This is another view of Queens Boulevard, this time facing west with the development site on the right. And another view of Queens Boulevard facing west, this time from the corner of Cornish Avenue facing west. The proposed rezoning would facilitate the development of a new 13-story residential building containing 314 total dwelling units, 79 of which would be income restricted pursuant to MIH Option 1, in approximately 263,300 square feet of floor area with an FAR of 6.0. Approximately 9,800 square feet of commercial retail will be located on the ground floor, and 143 accessory parking spaces will be located in the cellar level. The residential entrance would be located on the corner of Albion Avenue and Queens Boulevard. Commercial entrances would be accessible along Queens Boulevard, and the parking entrance would be located at the northern end of the site on Albion Avenue, marked in gray here. The proposed development would also include approximately 8,900 square feet of open space available to residences located on the interior portion of the site. So to facilitate the proposed development, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from an existing M11 to an R7X C24 zoning district and a zoning text amendment to map MIH, both options 1 and 2. The proposed rezoning will permit residential development as well as require 25% of dwelling units to be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI. The existing M11 district is a manufacturing district with a max FAR of 1.0. R7X districts are typically mapped along major thoroughfares and produce 12 to 14-story apartment buildings. R7X districts allow a max base height of 105 feet and the max building height of 145 feet. The C24 commercial overlay allows an FAR of commercial use of up to 2.0, and the project area is located within the inner transit zone and has no required accessory parking. The MIH Option 1 requires that 25% of dwelling units be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI, and Option 2 requires that 30% of dwelling units be income restricted at an average of 80% AMI. This application is subject to the racial equity report requirements since it seeks approval for an increase in residential floor area of at least 50,000 square feet. Between 2017 and 2021, the median household income in Community District 4 was approximately $78,200 annually, which is greater than estimates for Queens and New York City at about $70,900 and $67,100 respectively. The estimated monthly rent for income-restricted units for households between 40 and 80% AMI range from $1,090 a month for a studio up to $3,230 a month for a 3-bedroom. The estimated average income for households earning between 40 and 80% AMI range from $43,500 annually for a 1-person household up to $134,200 for a 5-person household. The applicant is proposing 25% of units would be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI in line with Option 1. The project area is located within the Sunnyside Woodside PUMA, home to approximately 162,200 total residents, of which approximately 39% identified as Asian non-Hispanic, 3% identified as Black non-Hispanic, 28% identified as Hispanic or Latino of any race, and 26% identified as white non-Hispanic. Between 2010 and 2020, the total population of this area increased 21%, which is substantially higher than the 8% growth seen at the Queens or New York City level. All population groups saw increases in population during this period. In particular, Black non-Hispanic grew 87% in this area during this time period. In summary, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment from existing M11 to an R7X C24 zoning district and related zoning text amendment to Appendix F to establish MIH with both options 1 and 2 to facilitate the development of an approximately 263,300 square foot, 13-story mixed-use building containing 314 total dwelling units, including 79 income-restricted units, 9,800 square feet of ground floor retail, and 143 parking spaces. That concludes my presentation. I'm ready for questions.
Great. Thank you again. Question from Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question from my end. In the description of the rezoning area, it looks like Lot 16, Block 1538, includes an industrial company, and I was wondering, I couldn't find more information about what is it or how many jobs, et cetera. And really the point of that is if you can share anything now, but if not, when this comes back, if you can share with us what's the plan, if there's any direct displacement.
Sure. I don't have the answer for that at this time, but I can bring that back for a pre-hearing. You said Lot 16?
Yes, Block 1538, Lot 16. 15. Sounds like there's a 2,700 square foot industrial building. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, thank you again. We're certified on 7801 Queens Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to the next item.
The fourth item on our agenda is a certification of a city map amendment in Queens Community District 13. Presenting for the first time to the Commission is Hayam Simon.
All right, first timer. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon,
to have you here.
Today I'll be presenting the JFK Conduit Logistics Center demapping project in Queens Community District 13. The proposed development is in southeast Queens near JFK Airport and the Belt Parkway. The development would be a new 37-foot tall, 2-story warehouse building. The building would be about 132,000 zoning square feet and includes 66 parking spaces. To facilitate this development, the applicant, WF Industrial, is requesting to demap parts of 3 paper streets. The project site and surrounding lots are currently being used as parking lots for school buses. The area is bounded by the Belt Parkway to the north, Nassau Expressway to the south, and Rockaway Boulevard to the east, and is near JFK Airport. It is located in the greater JFK Industrial Bid and the JFK IBZ. The project area is in a manufacturing zoning district, which has been the zoning since the 1961 zoning resolution. Within the project area, there is a mix of hotels, commercial, industrial, and small residential. North across Belt Parkway are residential uses, and south across Nassau Expressway is JFK Airport. Here is an aerial image showing the built environment of the uses on the previous slide. Just to the west of this aerial image is an interchange between the 2 highways and the JFK Expressway, which provides access to the airport. There are several hotels surrounding the project site to the northeast and west. Across 153rd Court from the project area is a DSNY garage and salt shed. Across 155th Street to the southeast are trucking and industrial businesses. Across the Belt Parkway to the northwest is Baisley Pond Park, which has playgrounds, ball fields, and natural areas around the pond further north. Access to the neighborhood north of the Belt Parkway is along Rockaway Boulevard, which is in the top right of the image. And directly south of Nassau Expressway is JFK Airport. This image shows the development site street front from 153rd Court. And this image is from 155th Street, showing the project site looking northwest, showing the site as a parking lot. The hotels in the background are across 153rd Court from the project site. This image shows the development site to the right and trucking businesses across the street to the left. And this image is also along 155th Street and shows the development site to the left. The red area on this aerial image is the area proposed to be demapped, and the yellow area is the development site. the applicant is proposing to demap parts of Byron Street, 153rd Way, and 145th Road. These lines are just illustrative, and the actual map street lines will be shown later in the presentation. The demapping area includes parts that are owned by the applicant, parts that are privately owned by others, and parts that are owned by the city. The applicant would acquire the portions of the demapped streets adjacent to their property, and the other property owners would be able to acquire the demapped streets adjacent to their own properties. Shown here is an illustrative site plan showing the proposed development after demapping. The two-story building will be used as a warehouse and will be about 132,000 zoning square feet. The development will have vehicular access from 153rd Court and 155th Street. Here's the development site together with the streets to be demapped. As you can see, the large building can only fit within the area of the mapped streets. The applicant is requesting the demapping and acquisition of portions of 3 paper streets: Byron Street from 153rd Court and 145th Ave, 153rd Way between South Conduit Ave and Byron Street, and 145th Road between Byron Street and 155th Street. Pursuant to Section 197C of the Charter, an application that seeks approval for disposition of land to facilitate a non-residential project containing at least 50,000 square feet of floor area is required to produce a racial equity report. The project is located in the public use microdata area, which includes the Queens Village, Cambria Heights, and Rosedale neighborhoods. This area has neighborhoods which range from the lowest to intermediate risks of displacement. The area is majority Black, non-Hispanic, compared to 16% of the population in Queens and 20% of the entire city. The percent of people who identify as Asian non-Hispanic is similar to the whole city, but is lower than Queens as a whole. The percentage of people who identify as white or Hispanic or Latino of any race is much lower than in Queens or the city as a whole. Between 2010 and 2020, the area's population grew at a slightly lower rate than the entire borough. The Black non-Hispanic population decreased, but at a lower amount than the rest of the city. The white non-Hispanic population had a much larger decrease than the rest of the city, and the Hispanic and Latino population increased more than the rest of the city. Although the population grew by 6% between 2010 and 2023, there was only a 1% increase in housing units. The rest of Queens and the city's housing units grew at about the same rate as population during the same time period. In summary, the applicant, WF Industrial, is requesting to demap portions of 3 paper streets to facilitate the development of a 2-story warehouse. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Great job. Congratulations. The three streets we're talking about here, there's nothing recognizable about them as city streets today. They are just parking, industrial, et cetera. Is that right?
Correct. They're just paved over asphalt currently, same as the area around it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see if there are other questions. Okay. Great. Congrats again. This item is certified.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
The 5th item on our agenda is a certification of a city map amendment in Queens Community District 12. Our presenter is Jasmine Tabame.
Hello, Jasmine.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm just waiting for them to pull it up. There we go. I pressed the wrong button. There we go. So as a reminder to the Commission, we presented the Jamaica Neighborhood Plan on March 17th. As part of the neighborhood plan, DOT and EDC are seeking a related action to the city map to facilitate the construction of 2 pedestrian plazas. These pedestrian plazas are proposed to be constructed across the street from the Jamaica LIR station as part of the Station Plaza project. The city map amendment is necessary to update the street and public place boundaries to accommodate the evolution of the plaza project design. So since 2007, the design has been revised to eliminate the plaza between 146th and Sufton, and to enlarge the proposed space to either side of that block. So west of 146th Street, the amendment would update the map public place boundary and adjust the street lines to consolidate the plaza at the corner of 146th and Archer. Between 146th Street and Sufton Boulevard, the amendment will remove the public place and restore the street lines to the configuration before the 2007 Station Plaza map amendment. And then lastly, east of Sufton Boulevard, the amendment will revise the public place boundary to encompass the remainder of the Lot 30 and adjust the street lines accordingly. So in summary, the proposed actions are needed to adjust the previously designated public place boundaries and street lines to match the existing scope of the project to help facilitate 2 new plazas. So any questions?
Thanks, Jasmine. Commissioner Cerullo.
Jasmine, a question. So the way this is represented, there is already a designation for public place?
Correct.
And so it's just modifying the existing public place sort of geographies?
Correct.
Okay. Who is the responsible party, well, I'll frame it as, for owning and managing this public place?
So the project is owned by DOT, but they will have a maintenance partner, and that maintenance partner is going to be the bid that's in Jamaica, so the downtown partnership.
The Jamaica, okay.
Yeah.
And are they aware of it? I'm not being funny.
No,
but,
yes.
Okay.
They're aware of it. They're going to enter into a partnership to be the maintenance partners for that plaza.
And do you know if they are participating in all of these discussions about what it will become and how it will work?
They've been a key stakeholder for DOT and EDC who's supporting this project. They've made sure between them and also like the council member and other electeds that they were kind of all involved in the design of the space, which is why they need to adjust it to better
Understood.
be able for the bid to maintain the space.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation. Just really quickly, can you clarify what type of public engagement has this particular component had, or if it's within sort of like the larger Jamaica Neighborhood Plan public engagement, or can you help us understand a little bit how that has taken place?
Yeah, that's correct. That it's had a separate public engagement process separate from the neighborhood plan. I think it's roped into the larger neighborhood plan in that there is a big desire for more public space in the neighborhood. But separate from that, because this plaza has been a pretty focused effort in this area, DOT and EDC has led a number of workshops to really envision what this plaza would look like. So they took a lot of that design thinking and visioning to create the design of the plaza.
Thank you. That's super useful. When we see it next, if you can share a little bit about who has been engaged and so forth from the community side, that would be very useful. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rampersad.
Yeah, just to feed off Commissioner Rosario's questions, I know they are pretty well. Is it possible next time around they can show us what they've been presenting? Mm-hmm. Because it'll be a great opportunity to see that. And also, has there been any commitments from Long Island Railroad, which is directly across the street, in terms of participating in the enhancement of this area?
So I know DOT and EDC has been working closely with MTA to coordinate because of all their infrastructure, but we can bring more information on if there's been any further commitments around that area for them.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, thanks, Jasmine. We're certified on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up.
The sixth item on our agenda is a certification of a zoning map and zoning text amendments in Brooklyn Community District 1. Our presenter is Griffin Mills.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Krodnick and Commissioners. This is a certification presentation for 535 Morgan Avenue rezoning. This is a private application for Me and Morgan LLC and Hammer 2 LLC requesting a zoning map amendment from an M11 to a C71 district. These actions would facilitate a new 20,265 square foot supermarket in an existing commercial space. This project is located at 535 Morgan Avenue, just south of the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway in East Williamsburg, Brooklyn Community District 1. This is an aerial view looking north towards the rezoning area, which is highlighted in orange. The rezoning area is situated between Meeker Avenue, which serves as a service road to the BQE to the north, Morgan Avenue to the east, Lombardi Street to the south, and Kingston Avenue to the west. Greenpoint is located north of the BQE from the rezoning area, and East Williamsburg surrounds the rezoning area from the east, south, and west. The area is well served by public transportation. The Nassau Avenue G train station is half a mile to the northwest from the rezoning area, and the Graham Avenue L train station is just over half a mile to the southwest. The B24 and B48 bus lines are both located 1 and 2 blocks north of the rezoning area respectively, which provides service throughout Brooklyn. There's also a city bike station located at the intersection of Morgan Avenue and Lombardi Street, immediately adjacent to the proposed project. The rezoning area is located just outside of the North Brooklyn Industrial Business Zone. The North Brooklyn IBZ is the city's third largest IBZ by employment and covers approximately 164 blocks in the East Williamsburg, Greenpoint, and Bushwick neighborhoods. As illustrated here, the land uses in the area surrounding the rezoning area consist 3- and 4-story residential walk-up buildings to the north and west, as well as 1- and 2-story light industrial warehouses to the south and east, as shown in purple. Commercial uses in red in the neighborhood mostly consist of delis, coffee shops, and small restaurants. Some nearby institutions marked in blue include PS 110 to the north and St. Cecilia's Church to the west. There are 2 open spaces within the surrounding area, Fidelity Triangle to the west and Sergeant William Dougherty Playground to the east. The rezoning area is immediately surrounded by an existing M11 district to the south and east, and R6 and R6B districts to the north and west. M11 districts allow for a variety of light manufacturing uses at a maximum of 1 FAR. Typical uses include repair shops, wholesale service, and storage facilities. Much of the surrounding residential area to the west was previously rezoned as a part of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg contextual rezoning. This rezoning intended to limit larger out-of-character development on mid-blocks and encourage new development on wider avenues. This is a site map of the existing conditions of the rezoning area, which consists of 1 singular tax lot spanning the entire block, as highlighted in orange. There are 2 buildings on the lot, a McDonald's to the west and the East Retail Building to the east, which currently consists of an AutoZone, Dollar Tree, and Staples. The McDonald's and East Retail Building have separate parking lots for a total of 110 spaces. This is a view standing in the parking lot of the East Retail Building looking east. The proposed project is highlighted in magenta. This is a view looking northeast at the East Retail Building from Lombardi Street. The rezoning area is highlighted in orange. The proposed project is to the right, highlighted in magenta. This is a view looking at the proposed project for Meeker Avenue. The on-ramp to the BQE is located 2 blocks east. The rezoning area is highlighted in orange, and the proposed project is highlighted in magenta. This is a view standing on Morgan Avenue looking southwest on the rezoning area. The rear of the proposed project is highlighted in magenta. The proposed project would allow a 20,265 square foot supermarket, which would tenant the space currently occupied by Staples. There would be no construction or additional development, and the other commercial uses would remain as is. The applicant would improve landscaping and bicycle parking on the lot to enhance the pedestrian experience and to comply with design guidelines outlined in the zoning resolution. These improvements would include pedestrian walkways, landscape buffers, and 16 bike spaces. In order to facilitate the supermarket, the applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from an M11 to a C71 district. Grocery stores over 10,000 square feet are not permitted in M11 districts, so the applicant is seeking a zoning map amendment to provide for more flexible commercial uses. C71 districts have a floor area ratio of 2 for commercial and community facility uses. The maximum building height is 65 feet. No parking is required within the greater transit zone. C71 districts provide more flexibility with uses than M11 districts and have the same envelope as the new M1A districts. In summary, this is an application for Me and Morgan LLC and Hammer 2 LLC requesting a zoning map amendment from an M11 district to a C71 district. These actions would facilitate a new 20,265 square foot supermarket in an existing commercial use. This project is located at 535 Morgan Avenue, just south of the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway in East Williamsburg, Brooklyn Community District 1. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. I've got Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I'm really interested in hearing about the surface improvements, the sustainability improvements of the site. I'm wondering if when we see it next week and see a little more detail in terms of that, it would be interesting to see how does this relate to nearby stormwater inundation and so forth. But also, I'm wondering if from a public urban design, public space point of view, you know, I see this site as kind of like the entrance to the IBC, although you never see that there's an IBC so big, you know, on the other side of these buildings. And so I'm wondering if there's any way to signal, you know, that this is a commercial space, you're going to have a supermarket, therefore you need all sorts of things. I'm happy to hear that there's going to be still a mix of commercial uses in there. But I'm wondering if it has come up in any way, or if there's an opportunity to signal that this is kind of like the entrance to this big IBC. For example, the parking spaces here may also serve in addition to the proposed supermarket, et cetera, kind of like folks that may be actually going to the IBC, but sort of like arrive here first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can speak to the applicant and gather more information for next.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you again. This item certified. Let's move on to number 8.
The 7th item on our agenda is a review of a general project plan in Manhattan Community District 5. Our presenter is Abby Ryder.
Thank you. Commissioner Cerullo is recused on this item.
Actually, the presenter is Dylan. So sorry, Dylan.
That's all right.
Hi, Dylan.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
This is the general project plan from the New York Empire State Development Corporation, or ESD, in collaboration with New York City Economic Development Corporation, or EDC, for the proposed 5 Times Square office to residential mixed-use conversion project located at 592 7th Avenue in Midtown, West Manhattan, Community District 5. The proposed project is a conversion of the former headquarters of Ernst & Young and currently leased office space to Roku to approximately 1,250 units of housing, including at least 25% as permanently affordable for households earning up to 80% AMI pursuant to the 467M tax incentive. This will also maintain approximately 37,300 square feet of ground floor retail with frontage on 7th Avenue, 41st, and 42nd Street. The proposed development would maintain its current height of 38 stories, or 578 feet, as well as the current building footprint area of 25,758 square feet. The development site is located adjacent to Times Square in the special Midtown district, where land uses in the surrounding area are mainly commercial and office, with a modest amount of multifamily walk-up buildings amongst the many theaters and entertainment establishments that characterize Times Square and the theater district. The development site is located in a C67 zoning district, which allows for 15 commercial FAR and adheres to R10 residential FAR, which allows up to 12. As noted in the overview slide, this project is Site 4 of the 42nd Street General Project Plan. Here's a map of the GPP with 5 Times Square outlined in yellow. Here we have an aerial view of the surrounding context facing east, with the development site outlined in yellow. You can see that 5 Times Square has frontages on 7th Avenue, 42nd Street, and 41st Street, with its large building footprint situated on the corner of the block. To the west is both the New York Times building as well as the Port Authority bus terminal. ESD, as a state entity, is vested with the authority to override local zoning regulations pursuant to the Urban Development Corporation Act. Provisions of Subdivision 3 of Section 16 of that Act provides that the City Planning Commission may recommend approval, disapproval, or modification of a general project plan whenever such plan requires override of local zoning regulations for implementation. For this project, ESD plans to make 4 amendments to the 42nd Street GPP in order to facilitate the office to residential conversion of this site. The first amendment pertains to use. ESD seeks to allow residential use within the boundaries of Site 4 or 592 7th Avenue, with the provision that 25% of created housing must be permanently affordable. Secondly, it is proposed that residential uses of the site may exceed the 12 FAR maximum. The next proposal is that the adjacent site in the General Project Plan 6E, current site of the new Amsterdam Theater, will be considered a single lot if necessary to facilitate legally compliant light and air for certain dwelling units within the GPP. Lastly, to accommodate this proposed project, it is seen as necessary to amend the design, use, and operational or DUO guidelines of the GPP, which I will get to in the following slides. These added use groups are drafted changes to the permitted uses of the DUO intended to support the 42nd Street's entertainment-oriented and commercial character. Many of these uses aim to attract flagship locations and novel retail experiences. Amendments in the DUO that pertain to affordable housing outline conditions to ensure the affordable units will have a proportional mix to the market rate ones, that rents will be stabilized and protected by law, and that they will be evenly distributed throughout the building, will have common entrances and access to all building facilities, and that building service employees will receive the applicable prevailing wage. As stated earlier, 5 Times Square is currently leasing several floors to Roku for office space, who seeks to run their lease out before vacating. Because of this, the conversion will have to occur in 2 phases, the first of which will result in roughly 850 units before Roku's office tenancy lease expires and the conversion can be completed, totaling approximately 1,250 units of new housing. This is an illustrative plan of a residential floor where you can see studios are the primary type of dwelling unit size, making up approximately 1,050 of the units, with 1 bedrooms making up the remaining 200, as the architect and design team seek to work with the existing building typology to build out a housing environment for young professionals intending to be centrally located and in close proximity to their workplaces. In summary, this is a general project plan amendment from the New York Empire State Development Corporation, or ESD, in collaboration with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, or EDC, for the proposed 5 Times Square office to residential mixed-use conversion project. The proposed development seeks to create approximately 1,250 units of housing, 25 of which being permanently affordable, while maintaining ground floor retail with added permitted uses to support the entertainment-oriented commercial character of 42nd Street, Times Square. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much. So, GPP modification, exceeding the existing FAR, new use groups, residential, which otherwise was not allowed under the GPP, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and it's for a total of a lot of units of housing. 1,250 units of housing with 25% permanently affordable. That's a big conversion. Okay. All right, got it. Let me go to Commissioner Marin.
So, knowing that you have 2 phases, what is the plan for access into the building, separating residential and the commercial, the Roku space?
So that one's actually a pretty interesting question. Something that we noted earlier is that they, in the phase 1, while they're waiting for Roku to either, I guess, break their lease or continue it out, they actually do have a shared lobby. which is relatively atypical, but it's permitted in the context of a GPP.
And what is the length of the lease left for Roku?
Until 2033. So it's a while longer, but from our understanding, Roku is subleasing all of their spaces. Like, they're not even there. It seems like they're trying to offload the space, and RXR is very committed to, following through with the conversion to the full extent.
And there's no separate elevated bank that could be dedicated just to go to those floors?
I believe that there might be elevator banks that do go just to those floors, but it's like a shared lobby, and they're not like sequestered from each other.
Understood.
Yeah.
Lot line windows. So you intend on making this one lot, and I don't want to assume, although I think I do know the answer. Can you tell us why you would do that? Why the applicant would do that, excuse me?
Yeah, certainly as a precautionary measure to ensure full compliance with MDL for the westerly facing lot line windows. So from what I can understand, and maybe like Susan can speak to it a tiny bit more, but they're trying to, under the GPP, be considered one lot so that it then limits redevelopment of the New Amsterdam Theater, so that there's nothing that could come up and block all those windows, especially given that with the layouts, they're, efficiency units would be calling, it'd be a little bit, euphemistic, so.
And so what would the treatment then be of that glazing? Because as you know, in a lot line window, if you do have a lot line condition, you would need to have calamine windows, and in this case, we're removing that lot line, removing that impediment. So what are we doing to protect the folks in that side of the facade of the building in the event that there's fires?
That's an interesting question. We'd have to get back to you on that from the ESD folks. Again, operable windows, I'm unsure about. And you're talking strictly for that westerly.
Yeah, when you have a lot line condition and you're building up against that lot line condition, even though you don't have any development rights, those windows are supposed to be calamine windows. In this instance, you have a building that already has its windows in place. I don't know what kind of glass that is, but certainly a concern for a fire condition. So that's why I bring it up.
All right.
And my third point, I'm sorry I didn't write it down, so I don't know what it is. If it comes back, I'll ask you again.
Okay.
I wrote 3.
But that was going to be the best one of them.
I know.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, let me see if there are other questions. Commissioner Mann.
Great, thanks, Jared. Just a quick question on the density. I'm just curious, what is the residential density on the site with the conversion?
It's high.
Yeah, it would be converted to around 35. Yeah.
35 FAR residential.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, I mean, again, it's working within the existing amount of floor area and the existing envelope. Then the building was, as part of a GPP, allowed to exceed even commercial densities there. So that's part of the GPP amendment, is to allow residential above 12 FAR for this site, which is a year 2000 building.
Sure, got it. Okay, and then just trying to understand the theater adjacent to the conversion. Are there any other changes to the GPP as it relates to the theater?
I believe an easement over it, but we can confirm there's nothing that's structurally changing to it. It's about, I guess, what kind of legal mechanisms would just ensure that there's no higher development, of it to block any windows.
But there's not changes to the uses permitted there, or any contemplation of any development happening on that site?
Correct.
Got it.
There's
Okay.
no contemplation of changes.
Okay. And then just on the environmental review side, just with 1250 apartments in Times Square, I'm just curious if there was anything that popped up on the environmental review side that's worth noting here, in terms of, the usual kinds of residential amenities that one would expect, schools, daycare, that sort of thing. If there's any impacts triggered.
We'll review to our novice SECRA eyes. It seemed to be nothing that caught our eyes, but we will come back to you with info on that for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann, I'm sorry. Commissioner Marin, I'm going to go back to you, since I know that point 3 came back to you, and then I'll go to Commissioner.
It was really important. So the last one was the 25% affordable units.
Mm-hmm.
What is your unit breakdown in the building, the proposed unit breakdown?
Overall, you have the ratio right there, right? It's primarily studio units with a handful of one-bedrooms.
So there are no family-sized units at all?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Osorio.
Thank you, Chair. Building on Commissioner Mann's question, I specifically had flagged some of the findings regarding previous hazardous substances inside petroleum bulk storage, also a dry cleaner. Given the fact that this is going to be residential, I was wondering if you can just highlight for us or look into any particular things that we need to make sure we flag in that regard. I mean, assuming that that's all going to be taken care of, but it just sounds like the research has already found important stuff in there.
That's a great point about the dry cleaners. Yep, we'll look into that.
Thanks. Thanks, Commissioner. Back to Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, apologies. Just question about the affordability and the kind of department's thinking around MIH versus a 25% at 80 AMI was my understanding of what the ESD proposal included. Obviously, if this were a city rezoning or rezoning pursuant to ULURP, I should say, that the MIH option would be 25% at 60 AMI. So just curious about the department's conversations with ESD about the affordability structure mirroring MIH.
It's a good question. I think that generally speaking, we're pleased that, the uptake of 467M has happened as quickly as it does. I mean, yes, noting that the layouts are relatively atypical for a lot of conversions. But this is now the second project we've seen uptake 467M. The first actually is kind of beating them to the punch a little bit is 25 Water Street downtown, which was slotted to be all market rate, and then swooped in to take advantage of it. So again, it isn't the same as the MIH requirements and distribution requirements that are required there, but I think we generally see it as a positive that the tax incentive is being uptaken relatively quickly.
Right. I guess my follow-up there is that I assume 25 Water didn't require any CPC action, although I could be mistaken, or at least
not to convert. Yeah, they had an authorization to enclose a POPs and turn it into retail space, but it was otherwise an as-of-right conversion.
Right. So I guess my question just is, for a 34 FAR residential conversion, why the commission wouldn't take the approach that MIH should be the affordable housing framework. And again, it's not transformative, but it does ensure that there's 10% of units at 40 AMI, which is obviously, a depth of affordability we wouldn't otherwise get in a 25% and 80 AMI framework. So just ask the staff and the department to consider that. Thank you.
Got it. That is part of the recommendation that, the commission recommends a framework for the affordability that goes out of its way to be more akin to MIH requirements that would otherwise be. Understood. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mann. Okay, thank you. We're going to discuss this at our next review session, so thank you for that presentation, and we appreciate it. We'll move on to the next item.
The eighth item on our agenda is a post-referral review of a non-ULURP zoning certification in Manhattan Community District 11. Presenting remotely is Audrey Walks.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Today, I will be presenting an application for transit easement zoning certification at 132 East 125th Street in East Harlem, Manhattan Community District 11. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Applicant Bruckner 125th Street LLC seeks a zoning certification pursuant to CR 95-041 to determine whether a transit easement volume is required for the zoning lot. The proposed action is required prior to the issuance of a building permit for the development site, and it would ultimately facilitate the development of an as-of-right 13-story, 134,000 square foot residential, commercial, and community facility building with a 6.56 FAR. Next slide, please. Is it possible?
Can we move that?
Yeah.
To move that slide forward?
Thank you.
Okay, stay with us for a second. Let's see if we can get that done.
Sure. Is the slide queued up? I see it on my end.
Okay, now it looks like it's working.
Okay, fantastic.
Go for it. We've got the area map.
Fabulous. All right. So as shown on the inset map at left, the project area includes Manhattan Block 1773, lots 62, 61, 58, 57, and 17. Within the project area, the development site is comprised of lots 58 and 57. And meanwhile, there's a mid-block lot 18, which is not included in the project area. Land uses within 600 feet of the project area are diverse in both form and use, with buildings that range from 1 to 12 stories across every land use category. Next slide. The surrounding area features a wide range of high-density residential, commercial, and manufacturing zoning. The project area is zoned C4 4D and is within the special 125th Street District and special transit land use district. Next slide. The Special Transit Land Use District is key to this proposed action. CR Sections 9504 and 95041 provide that prior to filing any DOB permit applications for development or enlargement within the Special Transit Land Use District, the owner of the zoning lot must file an application with the MTA and CPC requesting a certification as to whether a transit easement volume is required. In this instance, the applicant has confirmed with the MTA that a transit easement volume is required and is therefore seeking a certification pursuant to ZR 95041 to build its as-of-right development. Next slide. The project area is bounded by East 125th Street to the north, Lexington Avenue to the east, East 124th Street to the south, and Park Avenue to the west. Lot 62 consists of a 4-story public facility institutional building. 61 consists of a 2-story commercial building. The development site consists of Lot 58, which is a 3-story office building, as well as Lot 57. Next slide, please. Which is a vacant lot adjacent to the subway entrance, and which is the subject of the proposed application. Next slide. Here's a view of Lot 57 looking west from Lexington Avenue. Next slide. And a view of the development site and project area looking northwest from Lexington Avenue. Next slide. Finally, this is a view of the project area looking north from East 124th Street and Lexington Avenue. Next slide. The proposed building will be on lots 57 and 58, and the proposed transit easement volume will be located at the eastern portion of that development site at the intersection of East 125th Street and Lexington Avenue. Next slide. The easement volume will involve the allocation of an easement to provide sufficient area to widen the upper flight of the existing subway staircase leading into the 125th Street station to match the width of the lower flight of that staircase. Next slide. The easement extends 13 feet above grade and 15 feet below grade, as seen as these east-west and north-south section drawings. Next slide. In summary, the applicant seeks a zoning certification pursuant to ZR 95041 to determine whether a transit easement volume is required for the zoning lot, and it has confirmed with the MTA that a transit easement volume will be required. The proposed action is requested prior to the issuance of a DOB permit for the development site, and it would facilitate the development of an as-of-right 13-story, 134,000 square foot mixed-use building with a 6.56 FAR. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Great, thank you. So the certification is to determine whether it's required. We have explored the question. It is in fact required. So the certification sort of wraps that all up together to say it has been investigated, it has been determined, it is known, and we move on. Is that correct? Is that a fair way of saying it?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Let me see if there are other questions. We're going to be voting on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are any questions, now's the time. Okay. Seeing none, I will seek assent by voice vote to send an approval letter to the Department of Buildings. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Thank you. This is approved. Thanks very much, Audrey.
The ninth item on our agenda is a pre-hearing review of an acquisition in Staten Island Community District 2. Our presenter is Justin Rivera.
Good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon, Chair Garodnick and Commissioners. I hope you're all having a great Monday today. So today we will be revisiting 1919 Highland Boulevard. All right. So as a reminder, this is a joint public application by the Department of Design and Construction, Citywide Administrative Services, and Department of Environmental Protections, and they're seeking an acquisition of property by the city to advance the Best Management Practices program through the acquisition of a portion of Block 3551, Lot 140 for the New Creek Bluebelt System in Community District 2 of Staten Island. Please note that the BMP facilities for BMP New Creek 11 and New Creek 12 have already been constructed, and the purpose of this action is to advance maintenance of the program. All right. So going into their proposed acquisition area, the acquisition area, as highlighted in red, is approximately 5,940 square feet of the privately owned lot 140, with estimated dimensions of 27 feet by 220 feet south of the existing Highland Seaver Mall, which exists in an R5 zoning district with a C12 commercial overlay, adjacent southwest of the existing parking lot. This action is being sought because earlier discussions about a possible donation of the portion of lot 140 between the private landowners and the city had not been settled, and this acquisition would help facilitate advancement of the Best Management Practices program in Staten Island through a more seamless maintenance of the creek, as well as more efficient stormwater management. All right, and just as a reminder, the Best Management Practices system is a method of reducing water pollution through capturing excess water from storms and sending it through a number of natural barriers that filter pollutants and sediment from the water. And the Bluebell system as a whole is a program that works to preserve natural drainage corridors, manage stormwater, and reduce flooding in Staten Island. All right, moving on to the ULURP process. As far as votes go, the Staten Island Community Board 2 had voted unanimously in favor for this project, 21 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstentions. And Staten Island's Borough President had also voted in favor of approval of this application. All right, in summary, this site acquisition is being sought by DCAS, DDC, and DEP to advance the BMP program through the acquisition of privately owned lots. And yeah, as far as next actions go, they're going to be meeting with us shortly this week in order to provide us with a presentation. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions at this time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the prep. Let me see if there are questions for you. Okay, we'll pick it up on Wednesday. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Okay.
All right, future votes. Future votes for consideration on Wednesday, April 9th. Staff have prepared reports for Western Rail Yard modifications. Also, there were testimonies, public comments, and a letter in your materials. Abby is here to present.
Hi there, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. All right, this is the last post-hearing presentation for Western Rail Yard modifications and city map amendment before Wednesday's vote. Just as a reminder, this is a private application by WRY Tenant LLC, a partnership between the related companies and Wynn Resorts. There are 4 proposed land use actions included in this application: a zoning text amendment, a special permit, a city map amendment, and a modification of a previously approved restrictive declaration to facilitate 2 different site planning scenarios. Today, I'd like to walk through some topics we've discussed previously to provide further clarity, and then walk you through the department's recommendation for this application. First, as a reminder that this application is seeking a gaming facility license from the state for the Western Rail Yard site, and there are specific parameters on the Commission's consideration of land use applications for sites that incorporate potential gaming facilities. The Commission is considering 2 scenarios as part of this land use application, which we've been referring to as the gaming facility scenario and the alternative scenario. The special permit sought by the applicant applies to both scenarios, although the specific locational applicability of the special permit is adjusted in the gaming facilities scenario to reflect the applicant's intention to locate a casino and related facilities on the northern portion of the site, which is referred to as Site C. You can see here in the red hatched area on the left, which indicates the applicant's where the applicant intends to locate the casino and related facilities. To be clear, in the gaming facility scenario, the Commission is not approving the exact shape, location, or dimensions of a black box within which a casino can be located. Rather, the hatching shown is simply our attempt to visualize the concept that in the event that the applicant secures a state gaming license for the site, it will be automatically considered to conform and comply with zoning, as laid out in the separate gaming facility text amendment adopted last year. The exact configuration and design for the gaming facility will be subject to review and approval by a Community Advisory Committee, or CAC, as part of the gaming licensing selection process. Consequently, the Commission's consideration of this individual land use application applies to the portions of the site excluded from the red hatched area for the gaming facility scenario, and applies to the entire site in the alternative scenario where no gaming facility is contemplated. Before I discuss the departmental recommendation, I'd like to return to a topic that the Commission has previously discussed. There have been comments and questions about the original 2009 site plan for the Western Rail Yards and how it relates to the current proposal. The original 2009 plan was developed before the construction of any decking over the rail yards, and the applicant has represented that important lessons were learned from their construction of a similar deck above the eastern rail yards across 11th Avenue from the site. This is an extraordinarily complicated site with very limited terra firma. The site requires any construction above the operating rail tracks to accommodate continuous operation of the rail yards, as well as allowing for critical operational support of the rail facilities, such as train car inspections. Any structure constructed on the site has to take into account things like column placement between rail tracks, ventilation, and other mechanical and infrastructure requirements to allow the construction and placement of a deck above a working rail yard, all of which influence the placement of buildings and site topography above the decking. The applicant has stated that updated seismic criteria and their ongoing discussion with the railroads led to the conclusion that the site plan approved in 2009 was not viable and required modification.
The department believes it is reasonable to revisit this site plan 16 years after its original approval and with the knowledge gained over the intervening years. The applicant has proposed a mixed-use plan with changes to the configuration of the open space and pedestrian experience that the department believes will result in a high-quality series of buildings, uses, and public spaces consistent with the vision for the Western Rail Yards. In some cases, the proposal results in an improved condition, such as with the removal of the private streets and 2 building sites that were located in the center of the open space in the 2009 plan, resulting in a larger, uninterrupted, cohesive space in the center of the WRY site. I would also note that the current proposal does not alter the permitted uses or densities on the lot, and the potential to develop residential use remains the same from the 2009 plan to the current proposed plan. While the department supports the updating of the site plan, we are making recommendations to the Commission for modifications to the certified site plan to further improve urban design, building massing, and public areas on the site. I'll go into more detail on these recommendations in a moment. I'll turn next to the department's recommendation and use that to walk you through the recommended Commission modifications. I will then also provide some follow-up information to questions that some of the commissioners posed when we last met, cover the environmental review, and summarize the proposal. The department supports this application for a zoning text amendment special permit as recommended to be modified by the CPC, city map amendment to elevate West 33rd Street, and modifications to the restrictive declaration. The Commission heard and received numerous testimonies from the public review process for this proposal, and the department worked with the applicant team to respond to and address questions and concerns that were raised throughout. We will speak to in more detail on the special permit and mapping agreement, and I will touch on these points listed below in subsequent slides. Let's start with the application for the special permit. The department recommends the Commission approve this request for the special permit with some important modifications to ensure that the resulting site plan, building massings, and public areas are well integrated, appropriately scaled, and provide a valuable amenity to the public and users of the site. As we have discussed with you in prior post-hearing review sessions, the department staff worked extensively with the applicant team on the podium design at Site C in the alternative scenario to address its size and configuration. The original podium, as certified, lacked sufficient articulation, visual relief, and connectivity between the mid-block open space and West 33rd Street, all elements that the department and this Commission felt were critical in reducing the scale of the podium and creating a better relationship between the Site C buildings, the open space, and West 33rd Street. The modifications to the urban design and massing of Site C in the alternative scenario that the department recommends the Commission adopt include the following. First, a large open-to-sky pedestrian connection will now divide Site C in two, connecting the main open space with West 33rd Street. This pedestrian connection will be 60 feet in width, which is the same width as a typical Manhattan cross street and will serve multiple purposes. It will provide pedestrian connectivity across Site C at the same dimensions and consistent with the original intent of the 2009 site plan, thereby allowing the public to traverse the site along multiple paths. It will divide what was originally a very long and deep podium building, creating separate buildings of a more appropriate scale and rhythm. As I'll describe in a moment, further recommended changes to the podium massing will ensure that the buildings adjacent to the mid-block connection are appropriately scaled with setbacks to allow for a sense of openness. Next, a series of additional open to the sky areas in Site C, in the Site C podium facade will be required. These areas will be in addition to the facade articulation already required in the as certified urban design controls and will serve to introduce additional public access areas that will complement the primary open space and will lock in architectural variation that will provide visual relief along the south side of Site C facing the main open space. These newly required areas also add nearly 30,000 square feet of additional public access area to the site. These newly required areas in the alternative scenario include a 180-foot wide and 60-foot deep area as part of the mid-block connection, located where the through-block pedestrian connection meets the open space on the southern end of the Site C. This portion of the mid-block connection will provide a strong signal that can be seen from a distance that draws the public into the pedestrian connection to West 33rd Street. Also, another required open area will be located on the southeast corner of Site C at 11th Avenue, known as the corner open area. The corner open area will provide a meaningful open area adjacent to the 11th Avenue primary open space. These additional recesses would complement the portion of Site C that pulls away from the High Line on the western end of the site. And I'll note that the plan approved in 2009 allowed a portion of the building at this location to be located 5 feet from the High Line. As you can see in both the certified and updated proposal, the entire frontage of Site C pulls away from the High Line, and the notch pulls away almost an additional 50 feet. Finally, the modifications include various setbacks and adjustments to the height of the podium that provide additional visual relief and attention to scale and detail. As I mentioned earlier, this includes required building setbacks along the entirety of the West 33rd Street mid-block connection that will prevent a sheer canyon-like effect and bring additional light and air into the space. The modifications also include reductions to the height of the Site C podium. The tallest portion of the podium would be located along the 11th Avenue frontage, which could rise to 150 feet before setting back and rising to a maximum height of 200 feet. The podium would then step down as it moves from east to west with a base height of 120 feet and a maximum height of 180 feet. It's also worth noting that the perceived height of the podium would be about 25 feet lower than these heights, since the main open space rises up to the center of the space, as you can see in the diagram. So experienced from within the open space, the podium would be about 100 feet tall before setting back and rising another 50 or 60 feet. Taken together, the department believes these modifications to the Site C podium in the alternative scenario address comments heard from the Commission and others during public review, allow for a robust and flexible development program, and ensures substantial, appealing, and usable public spaces and buildings across the site. You can see in the massings to the right how the mid-block connection, together with the substantial changes being recommended to the podium massing, enhance the public open areas on the superblock and reduce the monolithic nature of the podium as originally proposed. As I mentioned earlier, that the recommended modifications complement existing urban design controls that were originally in the certified application. These urban design controls include requirements related to building heights, street wall locations, setbacks, as well as transparency, ground floor requirements that would ensure appropriately active and engaging building frontages across the site, along sidewalks and the open space. In addition, the proposal provides for a major new public open space across the superblock, spanning from 11th to 12th Avenues, and including spaces for active and passive recreation. This public open space will total 5.63 acres, larger than what is required as part of the 2009 plan. It will provide an invaluable amenity to residents and tenants of the Western Rail Yard site, as well as the broader local community and visitors, which will connect to the broader Hudson Yard open space network on the Eastern Rail Yard site, Bella Abza Park, and Hudson Boulevard. The additional public access areas created by the recommended commission modifications for the mid-block connection and corner open area would also add an additional 0.67 acres of public area to the site. Stair and elevator connections to the High Line would be provided at West 33rd Street, providing seamless pedestrian connectivity from the Western Rail Yard site all the way down to Gansevoort Street in the Meatpacking District, and to the east to Manhattan West, the Moynihan Train Hall, and Penn Station. Department staff believe that this proposed open space plan is superior to the one proposed in 2009, noting that the current proposal provides more green space versus the 2009 plans, which included private streets and 2 additional buildings that divided the open space area. Additional design requirements apply to this open space, ensuring that it contains a variety of spaces for a variety of users, as well as amenities such as seating, landscaping, play, and lawn areas. This public open space will be further enhanced by the modifications the department has recommended to the commission, which include public areas at the open to sky mid-block connection to West 33rd Street and the expanded corner open area at Site C, signifying a grander entrance into the large open space. These areas will also be subject to the design requirements included in the modified restrictive declaration. Taken together, the department believes that the application for the special permit with the modifications recommended by the department, in conjunction with the design requirements related to building frontages and open space, will create a dynamic, vibrant, and valuable series of buildings and public areas on the Western Rail Yard site. The department also recommends approval of the proposed city map amendment, which changes the elevation of West 33rd Street between 11th and 12th Avenues. Elevating West 33rd Street helps establish an active street frontage along the north side of Site C by aligning the level of the street with the elevation of the proposed Site C buildings atop the decking in both site plan scenarios. This will create a better pedestrian experience by eliminating long blank wall conditions and fostering a more active streetscape, enabling street level entrances to the buildings. The turnaround at the western end of the street will provide a public access easement for vehicular circulation as well as pedestrian connection to the High Line. With the modified site plan in the alternative scenario, the mid-block connection would also allow additional connection and access between West 33rd Street, the open space, and the High Line. I'll also note that the applicant has agreed to work with all relevant agencies to ensure that they meet all infrastructure requirements and standards necessary to effectuate the proposed change in street grade, ensure future access for maintenance purposes, and provide commitments for implementation, both as part of these approvals and separate instruments. Also, in order to provide some assurance that the applicant will indeed perform these improvements within a reasonable time frame, the city map amendment may be returned to the commission for rescission if the related special permit lapses, a gaming facility license has not been issued by the state, and the city map amendment has not been filed. The department has been in discussions with ESD regarding, to address questions from the commission previously. The department has been in discussions with ESD to address their concerns as an adjacent property owner to the proposed grade elevation of West 33rd Street between 11th and 12th Avenues. As you may have all seen in this week's briefing packet, a letter from ESD to the department outlining concerns about the proposed map change to West 33rd Street. ESD has indicated in the letter that they have been discussing these issues with the applicant team and have received verbal commitments related to the proposed changes on West 33rd Street, given its impact to the adjacent ESD-owned site. The department has also discussed with ESD the additional conditions laid out in the report related to the city map amendment that I outlined on the previous slide. ESD was appreciative of those additional assurances. And as a reminder from the previous review session, wind was analyzed in the FEIS associated with the 2009 rezoning, as well as the FEIS associated with the current proposed project. In the proposed project, wind conditions, and most areas at the ground level of the development site are expected to be appropriate for pedestrian usage during the summer and fall, but not during the winter and spring. The department has worked with the applicant team to add requirements to accommodate pedestrian comfort to the public access areas design requirements in the RD, which would be used for a future chair certification. Design elements could include things like windscreens, partitions, and planters. And finally, as an update, the applicant has confirmed that the public school entrance will be moved above the design flood elevation. The proposed project, as analyzed in the FEIS, identified significant adverse impacts with respect to shadows, transportation, including traffic, transit, and pedestrians, and construction, including transportation and noise. The identified significant adverse impacts and proposed mitigation measures under the proposed actions are summarized in Chapter 22 of the FEIS. To ensure the implementation of the mitigation measures identified in the FEIS, the mitigation measures are also included in the amended restrictive declaration. In summary, this application is meant to facilitate a redesign of the western rail yards in Hudson Yards with a proposed development including two scenarios, one with a gaming facility and the second is a modified alternative mixed-use scenario. I will again note that the department recommends approval of this application as modified by the Commission for all of the reasons stated earlier. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. Thanks, Abby. Very helpful and very comprehensive, and appreciate all of the efforts that you and the entire team have made to try to shape this proposal and to make it better. And I think that you have, so I congratulate you on that. We'll be picking this one up for a vote. I don't know if there are questions for Abby now. It's a good time. Okay, let's start with the Vice Chairman, then I'll go to Commissioner Marin and Osorio.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, if there is no designation of the casino, then the applicants would come back before us for any just explain that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, I know that we tried to be as clear and it's just complicated. So there are two scenarios, and that's sort of why there are two scenarios. The gaming facility scenario is if the applicant receives is awarded a gaming license from the state, then they would proceed with that development scenario. If they are not awarded, they could then proceed with developing under the alternative scenario, which I'll just note is what you're seeing with Site C here in the image below as modified if the Commission adopts those modifications.
So that is housing and commercial office space?
Yep. So on the left, the applicant's current stated intentions for the site in the alternative scenario. And again, I want to be clear that the applicant has made it very clear that the gaming facility scenario is their preferred scenario and their plan A. But in their plan B of the alternative scenario, they would plan to have a residential tower to the left of the building there. And as of right now, they are contemplating a hotel in the middle. And again, as we've noted at previous presentations, that would be subject to a follow-up action of a hotel special permit. And then on the right, it would be a commercial office tower. And that's what the applicant has stated to us now. But as we sort of discussed in this presentation and previous ones, the zoning, the allowable FAR and mix of uses is extremely flexible here, up to 8 FAR of residential or commercial. So any number of different uses could be developed on this Site C. This is just what the applicant has told us now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Commissioner Marin?
Sure. Can you go over again what the action is for 33rd Street? And is it a demapping? What is exactly happening there? I'm just trying to understand because of the changes in plane.
Sure. So, importantly, it is not being demapped. There's only a city map amendment to change the elevation of West 33rd Street. So it will remain a city street, and that's why we sort of noted those conditions that have been added to the draft report for you, stating that the applicant will be working with city agencies to ensure that the construction can be facilitated and maintained properly by the city.
So I question how is it being used as a street, because if you're looking at this diagram, right, understanding that there's a change in plane and 11th Avenue is higher than 10th, I'm going to assume, on this side, because we're looking west.
Right, so,
just bear with me a second. So when you come in from 33rd Street, all you're able to do is go around the circle and go back out. So for all intents and purposes, that's not really a through street. That's a street that's going to be used by participants, activists, people acting and going into the casino, and maybe some residential that may want to drop something off and then walk to their homes, and then in one of the scenarios, right? And then underneath, when you're coming in from 10th Avenue, you're going underneath 33rd Street, and it stops at some point because it's going to access into the building. So it's really not a city street per se, because the only activity that's going to be traipsing that street are participants or deliveries to the casino. Is that correct?
So first, I just want to clarify, we're facing 12th Avenue in that image on the screen.
Okay.
I just want to just clarify that, where you're looking. And you're sort of facing east towards 11th Avenue.
The bottom street is what you said?
12th Avenue.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're looking east.
I'm seeing 10th. My eyes are
straight up looking from 12th
I know
to
where we're
11th.
looking
Yeah.
through. I'm just reading the wrong thing. I know where we're looking through.
Okay. So below is correct. You're right there.
12th Avenue, correct.
Right. And so that's where there could be cars turning in or vehicles turning in. And part of the access for that will be not just for the site, but for LIRR, support and maintenance of the rail yard itself. So it's not just the gaming facility, but
it's not a through street, is my point.
Correct. It's solid fill.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. I'll just note that, while the marshalling yards to the north is currently basically a vacant lot, ESD intends to issue an RFP for that site within the next 12 to 18 months. And so there will be, active uses on that site in the relatively near future. Also, for some time, this will be sort of the northern terminus of the High Line. So visitors, people using the High Line, will use West 33rd Street to move east towards the rest of the city, or if they're coming from the rest of Manhattan, will use West 33rd Street to access the High Line.
The only thing you can access the High Line.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The only thing other than cargo and shipments into this building and possibly the future building that ESD is going to be RFPing, right? Because obviously there's nothing else to serve here, and they are in conversations with ESD, so there must be some sort of conversation about what if building this goes here, right? So this street, other than allowing for access into the casino, access into the casino from underneath and to the LIRR and to the new ESD building and to the High Line, does not provide for through traffic by a car.
Correct. There would not be through traffic by a car. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Osorio?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the presentation and the materials and for addressing our questions. I have two clarifying questions associated with the alternative scenario. So with the new open space that you are suggesting, or that has been, created with the alternative scenario, where are we in the indirect reduction of open space that was identified in the EIS?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not aware of how those things are connected, though.
Okay, yeah, if you can get back to us in that would be useful just to understand. Oh, maybe Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie Shalou, Director of Environmental. The EIS does not identify an indirect open space impact.
I had noted here from 0.5 to 0.46 per 1,000 residents. It was still above the recommended ratio, but...
Right, yes, so there was a reduction, but not a significant adverse impact.
Right, it wasn't, but it was a reduction in open space, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, the new created open space, where does it leave us in terms of the indirect reduction?
That's a good question. I'll have to follow up, just to confirm that the 0.67 addition from the alternative kind of offsets that, that reduction. We'll follow.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I want to,
okay.
That's my question. If you can confirm that, that would be great.
Okay.
And then the other question is, so have we analyzed the wind impacts of this, the alternative scenario of this configuration?
We'll follow up on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Mann?
Great, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I did want to follow up on the EIS questions as well in terms of, I think the concerns that the Friends of Highline had raised in particular around the sort of quality of the open spaces that would be created by this collection of buildings and the wind impacts in particular that Commissioner Osorio mentioned. So I look forward to that when you have that ready. I was just asking, I was going to ask a question about the sort of new configuration that the department is proposing with sort of 4 towers instead of 3, or at least 4 building sites instead of 3, with the through block passageway. Had there been, and I know one of the central tensions in this project has been the sort of switch from a primarily residential framework to a primarily commercial framework. Have there been conversations with Related about taking that westernmost piece of the northern site and exploring residential there, because that building looks to be, again, more akin to a residential footprint now that we're reducing the sort of square footage of the site.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah, so first I just want to clarify one thing. I know it's sort of difficult to visualize, and maybe I can bring it up on the screen, but if not, at Site C, I just want to note that it will still be one building site underneath because of the very significant infrastructure requirements. That is one continuous, podium or below plenum. And so even though it's broken up with a public access area of the mid-block connection above, connected to the open space, just noting that for the purposes of the special permit, it is one building site. So that's just one thing. And that there will still be only up to 3 towers on Site C. I don't know if maybe there's something that looks a little bit different, but there are 3 illustrative towers shown in that in those images. As of right now, the applicant in the alternative scenario has stated that they're interested in residential on that westernmost building. So you're correct, and the department agrees that that does seem to be a well-suited site for residential development.
Apologies, maybe my question was a little muddled. With the breaking up of the massing on the northern site, had there been any discussions about a changing of the use to increase the residential square footage on that northern site?
Okay, thank you for that question. And apologies if I didn't understand. There have not been discussions with the applicant about a proposed changing of the use. As I've noted before, at this point, the applicant is very focused on the gaming facility license that they're pursuing on Site C in the gaming facility scenario. And we expect that should they not be awarded the license, at that time they would examine their plans for the alternative scenario and explore what makes the most sense in terms of the mix of uses. But no, we have not discussed.
Okay, but so I guess I'm just trying to be extra clear here that in the alternative scenario, the northern towers would still continue to be predominantly commercial.
At this point, that's what the applicant has indicated, yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions? sorry, Commissioner Goodridge. And, but go ahead, you want to say something?
Sorry, it just occurred to me in response to Commissioner Marine's earlier question about West 33rd Street not being a through street. Currently, the NYPD has actually shut down West 33rd Street between 11th and 12th, so it is currently, even at its current grade, not technically a through street. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodridge.
I just wanted to clarify that we're voting on this on Wednesday, and the plan is not set, like whether it will include a casino or not. Like there are two different plans now.
Yeah, so the state gaming license process is, on its own timeline. They're required to submit applications in the end of June to the state. Anyone who's, across the city or in the downstate region that's interested has to do that by the end of June. And as part of that application, they are required to have any related land use zoning entitlements for their overall site if they're required. So you may have noticed with other applications coming through that there have been certain actions, but not the actual gaming facilities. That's the same thing here. What you're voting on is everything except for the gaming facility.
So it's the alternative in case the gaming facility is not, for whatever reason, approved?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, because I asked because obviously the criticism is that it's like, there was another one where I think Brad Lander was saying it undermines like the process. I think that one was, maybe it was this one actually, I'm not sure. Anyway, do you have a question or? Oh, I saw some confusion.
No, I'm just listening to you.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Commissioner, I just want to clarify that the certified application has always had two different scenarios. It's just that we're currently modifying, or the commission is modifying the alternative scenario, but there have always been two scenarios on the table. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. Okay, I don't see other questions, so thank you again. We appreciate all the effort that you all put into this, a lot. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next item, and we'll pick this one up for a vote on Wednesday.
Also, staff have prepared reports on 19 Massachusetts Avenue rezoning and 2201, 2227 Neptune Avenue rezoning. Lastly, for future votes, we have special district zoning authorizations for 47 Terrace Court in Staten Island Community District 2 and 59 Sherman Avenue in Staten Island Community District 1. Briefing materials were provided. Okay, next for post-hearing follow-ups. First, we have Grace Houses, which had a public hearing at the March 19th public meeting. Lynn Sue is here to present.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Carotton and Commissioners. The department supports Grace Houses, a rezoning application which would facilitate the development of The department supports the Grace Houses rezoning application, which would facilitate the development of a new 7-story mixed-use building with 153 income-restricted units and allow a long-standing faith-based organization maintain its long-standing presence in the neighborhood while reinvesting in a safe, modern space for worship and community gathering. The proposed R6A rezoning would extend the existing R6A district along Liberty Avenue that was mapped as part of the East New York rezoning to the mid-block project area, allowing for a greater residential density while maintaining a mid-rise built form consistent with the neighborhood scale and character. The zoning text amendment to establish an MIH area will ensure the future residential development includes permanently income-restricted housing. This aligns with the broader efforts to address the need for income-restricted housing in East New York. For these reasons, the department recommends approval of the Grace Houses rezoning application. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
Okay. Next, we have 109 Marcus Garvey Boulevard, LSGD, which also had a public hearing at the March 19th public meeting. Demetrius is here to present.
Hi, Demetrius.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. As a follow-up to the public hearing held on March 19th, the department would like to express its support for the 109 Marcus Garvey Boulevard application. As a reminder, this application is seeking a zoning map amendment, zoning text amendment, and zoning special permit pursuant to a large-scale general development to facilitate the development of a new 14-story residential building containing 292 income-restricted housing units for seniors, along with other site improvements. In particular, the department believes these actions will facilitate a mid-block infill development on a parking lot of an existing affordable housing complex, providing sorely needed housing for older adults, while including public realm improvements across the site. We believe the proposed R7A and R7A C24 zoning districts are appropriate for the area, given the site's close proximity to NYCHA housing just 1 block north that rises between 6 to 24 stories in height, in the C44L zoning district on Broadway just to the east, which is an R7A zoning equivalent. We also believe the additional building height proposed by the special permit will result in an improved site plan with a large open courtyard, a better building massing that increases access to light and air, and other open space improvements along the site's interior and streetscape. In conclusion, the department supports this application. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Demetrius.
Next, we have 145 for Harlem, which had a public hearing at the March 19th public meeting. There were memos in your materials. Trevor is here to present.
All right, Trevor.
Hello, good afternoon, Commissioners. So the public hearing for this project was held on March 19th, at which time multiple questions were put to the applicant team. As you saw in your package, the applicant team provided a 70, 80-page memo, so we're just going to cover at a very high level some of the salient points that are responsive to the Commission's questions. This is the CONY.
Can we get 145 for Harlem up? 1 second.
While we're pulling that up, at the public hearing, the Commission asked the applicant team to assess how responsive the applicant team has been to each of the conditions in Community Board 10's resolution. So I'll just start by summarizing how the applicant team addressed the board's 5 conditions as described in the memo found in your materials. The first of these was a request to reduce the overall height of the towers A and B. The applicant team noted that this would lead to a corresponding reduction in the number of market rate and income restricted housing units, and furthermore, a scenario with shorter, wider massings that contain the same number of dwelling units would be infeasible under the proposed zoning envelope, and not desirable from an urban design perspective as well, which is a stance that department staff agree with. As noted at pre-hearing, the applicant, the Community Board 10, requested an increase of the proposed community facility space from roughly 5,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet. The applicant team intends to provide this amount of community facility floor area in the proposed development. Also, as noted at pre-hearing, Community Board 10 requested that the proposed development meet dry and wet flood proofing, flood resilience standards given the project's location nearby the floodplain. The applicant intends to do this. CB10 also requested additional clarity on who the intended users of the 40 subgrade parking spaces the applicant will voluntarily provide below grade would be. The applicant clarified that this would be a privately operated parking garage with spaces available to both the public and building residents alike. Great, here we are. Can we go to the next slide, Jeff? It's the tower height, community facility space. Can we go to the next slide, please? Resiliency, next slide, please. This is the 40 non-zoning mandated parking spaces just noted. That's the 4th of the 5 resolutions from CB10. Next slide, please. CB10 also stipulated that all the income restricted housing units should be evenly distributed throughout the 2 residential buildings, and that the residents of these units should have access to all building amenities. The applicant team responded that the income restricted housing units would be distributed within the 2 towers pursuant to the terms of the 421A tax abatement and MIH program, and that all tenants will have access to all amenities. Next slide, please. Responding to the final condition of the Community Board resolution, that is to develop a community benefits agreement, the applicant has stated that this is in progress. Next slide, please. Going on to some other questions raised by the Commission at the public hearing. At the public hearing, the applicant team was asked how MIH option 3 would affect the buildings program. The applicant's response is shown here. They noted that option 3 would reduce the overall number of income-restricted housing units by nearly 100, whereas option 2, the applicant's preferred option, would make 281, or roughly 30% of units, affordable to households earning 80% AMI, whereas option 3 would have a deeper level of affordability for about 20% of the overall number of dwelling units. Next slide, please. The Commission also asked if there was any possibility of increasing the share of family-sized units. In their memo, the applicant detailed how the share of family-sized units has been increased to date from the certified plan and how the unit mix diverges from market norms in terms of providing a larger share of family-sized units, those being 2 and 3 bedroom dwelling units. The applicant team, in explaining their reticence to further increase the share of family-sized units, noted that the unit mix of income-restricted units must mirror that of the market rate units per HPD requirements. Therefore, an increase in the number of family-sized units would decrease the overall number of income-restricted housing units in the proposed development. Next slide, please. A question was put to the applicant team on as to what the AMI distribution would be under the enhanced affordability plan. And you can see this might have been buried in the memo on one of the 70 pages, but this is sort of the AMI distribution under the enhanced affordability plan, which, as you may remember, would be about 60% of all dwelling units in the proposed development should this HPD subsidy come online. And this concludes the presentation. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Let me see if there are questions for you. Anybody? Okay, great, thank you for the follow-up.
Okay. Lastly, for post-hearing follow-ups today, we have the Coney development, which had a public hearing at the March 19th public meeting. There were testimonies, public comments, and memos in your materials. Stephen is here to present.
All right, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
So following the City Planning Commission public hearing on the Coney development on March 19th, 2025, and after hearing questions and comments from the Commission and from the public, the applicant has submitted 4 documents, including a response to Commissioner questions on resiliency, a PDF of over 600 letters of support from NYCHA residents, a petition in support of the project with over 10,000 signatures, and a proposed modification to the West 12th Street Bridge, which I will show now with 2 slides. So the applicant is proposing to modify the demapped volume of the West 12th Street Bridge. This illustration shows the current requested volume of air to be demapped in the red dotted line. This is as the applicant filed their application. The red dotted line includes a buffer around the proposed bridge. The lower limiting plane in this illustration is about 34 feet. The depth of the requested volume is about 114 feet from Surf Avenue to Bowery Street. So this illustration shows the proposed modification of the DMAP volume of the bridge. The current proposed volume is the red dotted line, while the proposed modification is the black dotted line. So the modification is to raise the lower limiting plane to 50 feet and remove one of the convention floors so that the space underneath the bridge is similar to the Stillwell Avenue Bridge underpass, which is at about 50 feet. This would provide a more expansive area under the bridge for users and pedestrians at the street level. And the applicant is also showing illustrative widths of the uses within the bridge, which are carved back from the rectangular box. So the top floor hotel use, as you can see, is 51 feet in depth. It winds down to 92 feet where the gaming use is located, and then the one level of the convention use So if you flip back and forth, sorry, you can see the removal of the one floor, and it's being raised up. And that is the end of the presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. We just go back for 1 second. So the proposal is to raise that up on 12th Street from, give us the numbers again, from what to what?
So originally it was 34.
Yep.
Which is the red line on that illustration, and they're raising it up to 50 feet as the lower limiting plane, so that they can't build below that, where they were proposing to bring the bridge on West 12th Street down lower, closer to the street.
And what is the height on Stillwell's the next one over, right?
Yeah.
What's the height? What's the height over there?
That's 50 feet also.
That's 50, so it makes it even, even on both.
Even, yeah.
Okay, got it. Good, that's an improvement. Thank you. Commissioner Kermani.
I just want to confirm, did you said there was a, why am I losing the word? There's a 10,000 signature petition.
That's right.
In support of.
That's right. It's in your package.
Yep, no,
There's four,
I just wanted to
there's
say
4 names on each.
Yeah.
It was a lot of paper.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't have to print it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, great. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you for the update. Okay, Madam Secretary, what else have we got today?
There are no other items today, Chair.
Okay, well, with that, much appreciation to all of you. We will pick this one up on Wednesday in the morning, 10 o'clock. Thank you. See you there.
The time is 3:56 p.m.